cheating husband mocked his wife's final message, until he saw the ultrasound she left on the table. The gray Dallas morning hung heavy with humidity as Logan Mitchell pushed through the front door of his suburban home, his designer shirt wrinkled and reeking of cheap perfume that wasn't his wife's. At 35, Logan had perfected the art of entitlement, successful enough to afford his arrogance, handsome enough to believe his own lies, and careless enough to think consequences were for other people. He dropped his keys on the marble entryway table with the casual indifference of a man who'd spent the night wrapped around Rebecca Lane, 28 years old, and as cold as she was beautiful. Rebecca had a way of making infidelity feel like rebellion, convincing Logan that his marriage was just an outdated contract, keeping him from living his best life. The house felt different, quieter. Logan loosened his tie, expecting to find Emily Mitchell, his wife of 7 years, bustling around the kitchen, preparing his coffee with the same gentle devotion she'd shown since their wedding day. Emily, 32, had built their home into a sanctuary of warmth and love, even as Logan had spent the last 2 years methodically destroying it from the inside. Instead, he found silence, and an envelope on the dining room table. His name was written across the front in Emily's careful handwriting, the same script that had once penned love notes in his lunch bag when they were newlyweds. Oh, for crying out loud, Logan muttered, rolling his eyes. More drama. He tore open the envelope with the same carelessness he'd shown their marriage vows, expecting another tearful plea or desperate ultimatum. Emily had caught him in lies before. Unexplained late nights, mysterious phone calls, credit card charges from restaurants he'd never taken her to. Each time she'd confronted him with hurt in her eyes and hope in her voice, believing his elaborate explanations and empty promises. But this letter was different. Logan, I'm tired of being the only one fighting for us. I'm tired of pretending I don't see the lipstick on your collar or smell her perfume on your skin. I'm tired of loving someone who treats my heart like it's disposable. I used to think marriage meant forever. I used to think you'd remember the man who promised to cherish me. But watching you lie to my face while I pretend to believe you has become more exhausting than healing from the truth. I won't be here when you get home. Don't look for me. Don't call. Don't send flowers or write apologies you don't mean. I'm choosing me this time. Emily. Logan read it twice, then laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the empty house like a cruel joke. He shook his head, crumpling the letter slightly in his fist. She's being dramatic, he said aloud to the silence. She'll be back by dinner. They always come back. His phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Hotel room tonight? Can't wait to celebrate your freedom. Logan was typing his response when something caught his eye. Another envelope smaller than the first, sitting precisely where Emily had left it. This one was sealed with clear tape, and written across the front in blue ink were 5 words that would haunt him forever. So you understand what's lost. His fingers trembled as he opened it. Inside was a black and white photograph, grainy and mysterious, with measurements and medical terminology printed along the edges. At first, Logan couldn't process what he was looking at. Then the reality hit him like a freight train. An ultrasound. 8 weeks and 3 days. On the back, in Emily's handwriting, I was going to tell you on our anniversary next month, but you were busy building a life that didn't include me. The phone slipped from Logan's fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor. The crumpled letter fell beside it. His legs gave out, and he found himself sitting at the dining room table where they'd shared thousands of meals, staring at the image of the child he'd never know. 8 weeks ago, he'd been in Miami with Rebecca, posting pictures on social media while Emily was home alone, probably discovering their miracle and planning how to share the news with the husband who was too busy betraying her to notice. The house suddenly felt massive and suffocating at the same time. Every corner held memories of Emily's laughter, her gentle presence, her unwavering love. The coffee mug she'd painted for his birthday sat in the kitchen. Her favorite blanket was still folded on their couch. Her garden bloomed outside the window, tended with the same care she'd given their marriage until the very end. And he'd thrown it all away for Rebecca's empty promises and his own selfish desires. Logan clutched the ultrasound to his chest and, for the first time in years, felt the full weight of what he'd truly lost. But Emily was already 3 hours away, sitting in her mother's living room in Austin, finally breathing freely for the first time in months. Logan sat at the dining table for 3 hours, clutching the ultrasound photo until his fingertips went numb. The afternoon sun shifted across the hardwood floors, casting long shadows that seemed to mock his stillness. Every tick of Emily's grandmother's antique clock, the one she'd lovingly restored for their 3rd anniversary, hammered against his skull like an accusation. His phone buzzed incessantly. Rebecca's texts grew increasingly impatient. "Where are you? Thought we were celebrating. Logan? Hello? Don't tell me you're having second thoughts about that pathetic wife of yours." The word pathetic made his stomach turn. For 2 years he'd let Rebecca poison his view of Emily, convincing him that his wife's devotion was weakness, that her unconditional love was boring, that he deserved more excitement than quiet dinners and gentle conversations about their future. Now, staring at the proof of that future, a future Emily had been nurturing while he was busy destroying it, Logan felt sick. He finally picked up his phone and dialed Emily's number. It went straight to voicemail. Her voice, recorded months ago when things were still salvageable, was cheerful and warm. "Hi, you've reached Emily. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Have a blessed day." The beep felt like a gunshot. Emily, it's me. I found the photo, the ultrasound. Baby, why didn't you tell me? I would've." His voice cracked. "Please call me back. We need to talk about this. About us. About our baby." He hung up and immediately called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. On the 5th attempt, a different voice answered. Stern, protective, familiar. "She doesn't want to talk to you, Logan." Dorothy Chambers, Emily's mother, had never liked him. From the beginning, she'd seen through his charm to the selfish man underneath. Emily had always defended him, making excuses for his behavior, believing in the man she thought he could become. "Mrs. Chambers, please. I need to speak with Emily. I know about the baby. I can explain everything." "Explain?" Dorothy's laugh was bitter. "Explain how you were in Miami posting pictures with your girlfriend while my daughter was home alone, throwing up every morning and trying to decide whether to bring a child into a broken marriage? Explain how you missed every sign that she needed you because you were too busy not caring." Logan's throat constricted. "How did you—" "She told me everything, Logan. Every lie, every betrayal, every night she cried herself to sleep while you were out living your best life." Dorothy's voice grew harder. "She's done protecting you from the consequences of your choices. I love her. I love Emily. And I want to love our baby. I made mistakes, but no." The word hit like a sledgehammer. Mistakes are forgetting anniversaries or leaving dishes in the sink. What you did was a choice. Every day for 2 years, you chose someone else over your wife. You chose to lie to her face. You chose to make her feel like she wasn't enough. Logan closed his eyes. "Where is she? I need to see her. She's somewhere safe, healing from the damage you caused. And she's staying there." The line went dead. Logan threw his phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall beside Emily's favorite photograph, their honeymoon in Napa Valley, both of them laughing in a vineyard, her eyes bright with the kind of joy he'd slowly stolen from her. By evening, his desperation had transformed into frantic action. He drove to every place Emily might go, her sister's house in Frisco, her best friend Sarah's apartment, even the small church where she volunteered on weekends. Everyone gave him the same cold reception, the same protective silence. At the church, Pastor Williams, a man who'd counseled them through rough patches before, met Logan at the door with unexpected firmness. "Emily asked me to give you this if you came looking for her," he said, handing over a manila envelope. Inside were copies of everything: bank statements showing Logan's expensive dinners and hotel charges, phone records revealing hundreds of calls to Rebecca's number, even photographs. Logan's arm around Rebecca at restaurants, walking hand in hand through downtown Dallas, kissing in the parking lot of the Hyatt where they'd spent so many afternoons. Emily had known everything. For months she'd been collecting evidence while hoping he'd come to his senses. She'd been giving him chances to confess, to change, to choose their marriage over his affair. Instead, he'd grown bolder, more careless, more convinced of his own invincibility. At the bottom of the stack was a handwritten note. "Logan, I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, not because I wanted to catch you, but because I needed to know if I was going crazy. If the man I married was really capable of looking me in the eye every morning and lying. You were. I don't hate you for falling out of love with me. I hate you for pretending you hadn't. I hate you for letting me hope while you planned my replacement. I hate you for making me feel like I wasn't worth the truth. Our baby deserves better than a father who treats love like it's disposable. Don't contact me again. Emily P.S. Rebecca knows about the pregnancy now. Ask her how excited she is about becoming a stepmother." Logan's blood ran cold. He grabbed his broken phone, trying to call Rebecca, but the screen was too damaged to function. He drove to her apartment in uptown Dallas, taking the stairs two at a time to the 5th floor. When she opened the door, her usual seductive smile was replaced by barely concealed panic. "Finally," she said, but her voice was strained. "We need to talk." "You know," Logan said, pushing past her into the apartment. "You know about the baby." Rebecca poured herself a large glass of wine, something she'd never needed before when they were together. "Your wife's mother called me. Told me all about your little situation." "Situation?" Logan stared at her. "That's our baby you're talking about." Rebecca's laugh was sharp, ugly. "Our baby? Logan, honey, I never signed up for playing house with someone else's pregnant ex-wife. I'm 28 years old. I'm not ready to be anyone's stepmom, especially not to the child of a woman who hates me." The words hit Logan like physical blows. For 2 years, Rebecca had talked about their future, about how perfect they were together, about how Emily was just holding him back from his true happiness. Now, faced with the reality of that future, complicated by responsibility and consequences, she was already running. "But we love each other," Logan said weakly. Rebecca set down her wine glass and moved to the window, looking out at the Dallas skyline. "We had fun together, Logan. Great sex, exciting adventures, no strings attached. But love, real love, means staying when things get messy. Real love means sacrificing for someone else's happiness." She turned back to him, and for the first time, he saw her clearly, not as the exciting escape from his boring marriage, but as someone just as selfish and shallow as he'd become. "You had that kind of love," Rebecca continued. "Emily loved you that way, and you threw it away for this." She gestured between them. "For something that was never meant to last." Logan sank onto her leather couch, the ultrasound photo still clutched in his hand. "So that's it? You're leaving too?" Rebecca was already moving toward her bedroom. "I'm going to visit my sister in Denver for a while. Let this whole thing blow over. Maybe you should focus on figuring out how to be a father to a child whose mother never wants to see you again." As she disappeared into the bedroom to pack, Logan realized he was truly alone for the first time in his adult life. No wife who loved him unconditionally, no mistress who promised him everything, just the photograph of a child he'd never hold, and the growing weight of understanding what he'd destroyed in his pursuit of something that had never been real at all. Meanwhile, 3 hours south in Austin, Emily sat in her childhood bedroom, one hand resting on her barely visible belly, finally allowing herself to imagine a future filled with love instead of lies. 2 weeks after Emily's disappearance, Logan's carefully constructed world began to crumble in ways he hadn't anticipated. The first crack came on a Tuesday morning at his insurance firm in downtown Dallas, when his secretary Brenda, a 60-year-old woman who'd known Emily since their engagement, placed his coffee on his desk with unusual coldness. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice stripped of its usual warmth. "Your wife called yesterday. She asked me to remove her from all company event lists." Logan looked up from his computer. "What did you tell her?" Brenda's lips pressed into a thin line. "I told her I was sorry for what she's going through and that she's welcome back any time." She paused. "I also told her that some people don't deserve the good things they have until it's too late to matter." The judgment in her voice was unmistakable. Logan realized with growing horror that Emily had reached out to their shared social circle, not to cause drama or seek revenge, but simply to extract herself cleanly from the life they'd built together. His phone rang. David Turner, his business partner and supposed best friend. "Logan, we need to talk." David's voice was strained. "Can you come to my office?" 20 minutes later, Logan sat across from David in the corner office, watching his oldest friend struggle to find words. "Janet told me about Emily," David finally said. Janet was David's wife, who'd been in Emily's book club for 3 years. "She said that you've been," he ran his hands through his hair. "Jesus, Logan. Emily? Really? Sweet, loyal Emily?" "It's complicated, Dave." "No, it's not." David's voice hardened. "Janet showed me the photos. Rebecca Lane from the Riverside agency, right? That real estate agent you met at the Fletcher account? Emily knows everything, Logan, the hotels, the trips, the lies, and she's pregnant." The word pregnant hung in the air like an accusation. "I didn't know about the baby," Logan said weakly. "That makes it worse, not better." David stood up, walking to his window. "Emily was at our anniversary party 3 months ago, remember? She barely touched her wine, kept running to the bathroom. Janet noticed. Said she looked green around the gills but was glowing at the same time. You know what Emily told Janet when she asked if she was feeling okay?" Logan's stomach dropped. "What?" She said she was hoping to have good news to share soon, but she wanted to wait until she was sure. She wanted to surprise you properly. David turned around. While she was planning how to tell you about your first child, you were posting Instagram photos with your mistress in South Beach. The weight of David's disappointment was crushing. They'd known each other since college, had been best men at each other's weddings. David had watched Logan fall in love with Emily, had seen how happy she made him. Janet doesn't want to see you anymore, David continued. And honestly, I'm struggling with this partnership. How can I trust you with our clients' families when you couldn't honor your own marriage? Meanwhile, in Austin, Emily was experiencing her own revelations, but hers were leading to strength rather than destruction. Her mother's house on Elm Street felt like a sanctuary. The same wallpaper from her childhood, the same creaky stairs, the same sense of unconditional safety. Dorothy Chambers had turned the spare bedroom into a temporary nursery, complete with a rocking chair that had belonged to Emily's grandmother. You don't have to decide everything today, Dorothy said as they sat on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft pastels. Emily's hand rested on her small bump, now 14 weeks along and finally showing. I know, Emily said, but I feel like I'm finally thinking clearly for the first time in years. She'd started seeing Dr. Linda Foster, a counselor who specialized in helping women rebuild after betrayal. The sessions were difficult but illuminating. You spent so much energy trying to save a marriage that only one person was fighting for, Dr. Foster had told her during their second session. Now you get to discover who Emily is when she's not constantly worried about whether she's enough. Emily was discovering she was stronger than she'd imagined, though some days were harder than others. She'd already found a job at Austin Community College, working in their student services department. The salary was modest, but the health insurance was excellent, and the environment was supportive. Her supervisor, Mrs. Garcia, was a single mother herself who understood the challenges Emily faced. Not every day was good. Sometimes Emily woke up crying, wondering if she'd made the right choice. Sometimes she caught herself reaching for her phone to call Logan, only to remember why that wasn't an option anymore. The pregnancy hormones didn't help. One moment she felt invincible. The next, she was sobbing over a commercial about families. You have that look, Dorothy observed, studying her daughter's face. What look? The same look you had when you were 7 and decided to build a treehouse by yourself. Determined, focused, a little stubborn. Emily smiled, the first real smile she'd felt in months. I've been thinking about names. If it's a boy, maybe Liam. It means strong-willed protector. And if it's a girl, Grace. Because I feel like I'm finally living by grace instead of constantly trying to earn love. Her phone buzzed. Another call from Logan, the 15th this week. She'd stopped answering after the first few desperate voicemails, but he kept trying. He came by St. Mark's again, Dorothy said quietly. St. Mark's was their old church in Dallas where Emily still had friends who kept her mother informed. Pastor William said he looked terrible, asked if there was any way to get a message to you. Emily's expression hardened slightly. What kind of message? That he's sorry, that he wants to be a father, that he'll do anything to make things right. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Her hand moved to her phone, thumb hovering over Logan's number. For a terrifying second, she imagined answering his next call, hearing him cry, maybe even meeting him somewhere neutral to talk. The fantasy lasted exactly 3 heartbeats before reality crashed back. She remembered the lipstick stains, the late nights, the way he'd looked her in the eye and lied effortlessly while she'd been carrying his child. Mom, do you remember when I was 16 and Tommy Brennan broke up with me right before prom? I cried for weeks, convinced I'd never find love again. You were heartbroken, but you went to prom anyway with your friends and had a wonderful time. Exactly. I learned I could survive disappointment. I learned I didn't need someone else to validate my worth. Emily touched her belly gently, her resolve strengthening. This is bigger than prom, obviously, but the principle is the same. I don't need Logan to rescue me from the consequences of his own choices. That evening, Emily made a decision that would have been impossible 3 months earlier. She blocked Logan's number, not out of anger, though anger was certainly there, not out of spite, though he deserved it. She blocked him because she was finally choosing peace over chaos, clarity over false hope. She was choosing herself and her baby over the man who had proven, repeatedly, that he couldn't be trusted with either of their hearts. Back in Dallas, Logan was discovering that his professional life was crumbling alongside his personal one. Word had spread through their social and business circles. The Riverside agency had quietly ended their contract with his firm, Rebecca's connections there making continued partnership awkward. The Fletcher account, worth nearly $200,000 annually, had moved to a competitor. Even his gym buddy Derek Williams had stopped returning texts. The Thursday night poker game he'd attended for 5 years had mysteriously moved to a different night without informing him. Logan was learning that in a community where relationships mattered, destroying a marriage to someone as beloved as Emily came with a social cost he'd never considered. As he sat alone in his empty house surrounded by reminders of the woman who'd loved him completely, Logan began to understand that he hadn't just lost a wife. He'd lost his integrity, his reputation, his closest friendships, and his future as a father. But Emily was just getting started. 3 months had passed since Emily left Dallas, and autumn was painting Austin in shades of gold and crimson. At 18 weeks pregnant, she could no longer hide her growing bump, but she'd stopped trying to. The woman who once apologized for taking up space was now embracing the room she needed. Her morning routine had become sacred. Coffee replaced with herbal tea, a walk around Lady Bird Lake, then work at Austin Community College where she'd quickly become indispensable. Students sought her out not just for academic guidance but for her genuine warmth and practical wisdom. "Ms. Chambers," said Maria Santos, a 19-year-old single mother struggling to balance classes with raising her toddler son. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. Taking care of Diego, working nights, trying to study. Maybe I should just drop out." Emily looked up from her desk, seeing something of herself in Maria's exhausted determination. "What would you tell your son if he wanted to quit something difficult but important?" Maria's shoulders straightened slightly. "That nothing worthwhile is easy." "Exactly. And you know what? When your son grows up and asks how his mom became a nurse, you'll be able to tell him you never gave up on your dreams even when it was hard." Emily pulled out a folder. "There's a child care scholarship program I think you qualify for. Let's fill out the application together." These moments, helping other women find their strength, filled Emily with purpose she'd never experienced. She was discovering that her capacity for love and support hadn't been diminished by Logan's betrayal. It had simply been redirected toward people who valued it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Claire in Houston. "Logan called me again. 15th time this month. What do you want me to tell him?" Emily typed back, "Nothing. Block his number too." Claire's response was immediate. "Already done. Proud of you, sis." That evening, Emily attended her first prenatal class at Austin Birth Center. She debated going alone, knowing most participants would be couples, but Dr. Rivera, her obstetrician, had encouraged her. "Support comes in many forms," Dr. Rivera had said. "Sometimes the strongest support is the decision to show up for yourself." The class was taught by Janet Walsh, a certified midwife with kind eyes and a reassuring presence. As Emily settled onto her yoga mat, she noticed the other participants, couples holding hands, sharing excited whispers about nursery themes and name choices. For a moment, the familiar pang of loss threatened to overwhelm her. This should have been her and Logan, planning together, dreaming together. Instead, it was just her, and surprisingly, that felt like enough. "Let's start with introductions," Janet said. "Share your name and one thing you're looking forward to about becoming a parent." When it was Emily's turn, she placed her hand on her belly and spoke with quiet confidence. "I'm Emily. I'm looking forward to showing my baby what unconditional love looks like." The woman next to her, Jessica, smiled warmly. "That's beautiful. Are you here alone tonight?" "My partner couldn't make it," Emily said, which was technically true. Logan couldn't make it because he wasn't invited to be her partner anymore. After class, Jessica approached her in the parking lot. "I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but if you ever need a friend to talk to, here's my number." Being pregnant can feel overwhelming sometimes. Emily accepted the card gratefully. She was learning that kindness often came from unexpected places, and that community could be chosen rather than inherited. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was discovering the opposite truth. His world was contracting with each passing day. Rebecca had made good on her threat to leave for Denver, but not before ensuring that her departure caused maximum damage to Logan's reputation. She'd told their mutual acquaintances that Logan had trapped her with promises of leaving his wife, only to panic when faced with real responsibility. The story wasn't entirely accurate, but it was close enough to the truth to be devastating. Logan's business partner David had officially dissolved their partnership the week before. "It's not personal," David had said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Janet's made it clear that supporting you means losing her friendship with Emily. And honestly, Logan, I can't look at you the same way anymore. The firm that had once thrived on Logan's charm and connections was slowly hemorrhaging clients. Word traveled through Dallas's professional community, but not uniformly. Some clients remained loyal, particularly those who didn't know Emily personally or valued Logan's professional competence over his personal failures. Others quietly moved their business elsewhere. The damage was real but gradual. Logan estimated they'd lost about 30% of their client base over 6 months, enough to cause serious financial strain, but not immediate collapse. His parents, Richard and Susan Mitchell, had driven down from Oklahoma to confront him about the mess he'd made of his life. The conversation had not gone well. Emily was the best thing that ever happened to you, his mother had said, tears in her eyes. She loved you the way every woman hopes to be loved. And you threw it away for what? Some young woman who ran at the first sign of difficulty? You don't understand, Logan had started. I understand perfectly, his father had interrupted. You're just like my brother Paul. Remember him? Cheated on Aunt Helen, lost his family, his business, everything. Spent the last 20 years of his life alone and bitter, wondering why no one wanted to be around a man who couldn't keep his word. The comparison stung because it was accurate. Logan was becoming the family cautionary tale, the example of how not to live. His attempts to rebuild his professional reputation were failing spectacularly. New clients were hard to find, and existing ones seemed to be looking for reasons to leave. The networking events he'd once dominated now felt hostile. Conversations stopped when he approached, and business cards were reluctantly exchanged with obvious discomfort. Most painful of all were the chance encounters with people who'd known Emily. Just last week, he'd run into their former neighbor, Mrs. Park, at the grocery store. The elderly woman had looked at him with such disappointment that he'd abandoned his cart and left without buying anything. That poor girl, Mrs. Park had said loudly enough for other shoppers to hear. 7 years of marriage, and he threw her away like she meant nothing, while she was carrying his baby, no less. The whispers had followed him out of the store. Logan's drinking had increased steadily, not enough to interfere with work, what work he had left, but enough to numb the constant ache of regret that had taken up residence in his chest. He'd sit in Emily's chair at their dining table, surrounded by reminders of their shared life, wondering how he'd convinced himself that Rebecca's shallow excitement was worth more than Emily's deep, abiding love. The ultrasound photo had become his torment. He'd had it framed and placed on his bedside table, a daily reminder of the future he'd destroyed. 22 weeks now. His child was growing inside a woman who had every reason to ensure he never met his son or daughter. His lawyer, Brad Hutchinson, had been brutally honest about his chances for custody or even visitation. She has documented evidence of a 2-year affair, Brad had explained. She has character witnesses, lots of them. She has financial stability and family support. You have, what exactly? A pattern of dishonesty and abandonment? I can change, Logan had insisted. Maybe you can, but the court won't care about who you might become. They care about who you've proven yourself to be. Logan was learning that consequences didn't negotiate, that reputation couldn't be rebuilt with good intentions, and that some mistakes cast shadows that lasted far longer than the momentary pleasure that caused them. As he sat alone in his empty house, he realized that Emily hadn't just left him. She'd escaped, and with each passing day, as her new life took shape 3 hours away, the distance between them became less about geography and more about the fundamental difference between someone who honored love and someone who had never learned how. Emily's 20-week ultrasound appointment fell on a crisp November morning in Austin. As she lay on the examination table watching her baby move on the grainy monitor, Dr. Rivera smiled warmly. "Would you like to know the gender?" she asked. Emily's heart raced. This moment should have been shared with a partner, but instead of sadness, she felt a surge of anticipation. "Yes, please. Congratulations, Emily. You're having a son." A son? Emily's eyes filled with tears as she watched the tiny figure on the screen, his little fist near his face as if he was already preparing to face the world with determination. "Hello, baby boy," she whispered. Dr. Rivera printed several photos and handed them to Emily. "He looks very healthy. Strong heartbeat, good size. You're doing an excellent job taking care of yourself and him." As Emily drove home through Austin's tree-lined streets, she felt a profound sense of completeness. She was going to raise a son, teach him about respect, integrity, and how to love with his whole heart. She would show him what it meant to honor commitments and value the people who loved him. That evening, she called her sister Claire to share the news. "A boy!" Claire squealed from her Houston apartment. Oh, I'm so excited. Have you thought about names? Liam? Emily said without hesitation. Liam James Chambers, after Grandpa James. Chambers? You're not keeping Mitchell? Emily looked around her mother's house at the photos of 3 generations of strong women, at the rocking chair where her grandmother had once nursed her own children, at the life she was building on her own terms. No, she said firmly. I'm going back to who I was before I lost myself trying to be who someone else needed me to be. Liam will be at Chambers. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was experiencing his own moment of reckoning. He'd been sitting in his car outside Emily's old workplace for 2 hours, hoping to catch someone who might know where she was. When her former colleague Jennifer finally emerged, she spotted him immediately. Logan? Jennifer approached his car with a mixture of pity and disgust. What are you doing here? I need to find Emily. She's not answering my calls, and I need to know about the baby. Jennifer crossed her arms. The baby that you didn't know existed because you were too busy cheating on your wife to notice she was pregnant? That baby? The words hit like physical blows. I made mistakes. Mistakes? Jennifer's voice rose. Logan, Emily knew about your affair for months. She came to work every day pretending everything was fine while you were flaunting your girlfriend around town. Do you have any idea what that did to her? She lost 15 pounds because she couldn't eat without throwing up from stress. She cried in the bathroom during lunch breaks. She made excuses to her friends about why you couldn't attend gatherings together. Logan's stomach dropped. He'd convinced himself that Emily had been clueless until the end, that his affair had been discreet. She protected your reputation even while you were destroying hers. Jennifer continued. When people asked where you were, she made up work trips and family obligations. She covered for you until the very end, and you repaid her loyalty by making her feel like she wasn't enough. I want to make it right, Logan said desperately. There is no making this right. Emily is finally happy, Logan. For the first time in 2 years, she's laughing again. She's building a life that doesn't include walking on eggshells, wondering if today's the day you'll finally leave her for someone younger and more exciting. Jennifer turned to go, then paused. You want to do right by that baby? Leave Emily alone. She's already a better parent than you've ever proven you can be. That night, Logan found himself at Murphy's Pub, the bar where he'd first met Rebecca 2.5 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on him, sitting in the place where his life had started unraveling, drinking away the consequences of choices that had seemed so reasonable at the time. The bartender, Tommy, had known Logan for years. They'd shared countless conversations about sports, business, life. Tonight, Tommy's demeanor was noticeably cooler. Heard about you and Emily, Tommy said as he poured Logan's whiskey. Damn shame. She was good people. She still is good people, Logan mumbled into his drink. Is she? 'Cause word is you drove her out of town. Pregnant woman. Left everything she knew because her husband couldn't keep his promises. Tommy shook his head. My wife would have cut off my manhood if I'd pulled something like that. Logan looked around the bar and realized he was being watched. Conversations quieted when he passed. Old acquaintances nodded politely but didn't approach. He'd become a pariah in his own community, the man who'd betrayed the sweetest woman anyone knew. His phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Saw the gossip blogs. Your wife's pregnancy is public now. Hope you're ready for everyone to know what kind of man you really are. Logan's blood ran cold. Gossip blogs? He quickly searched online and found the story on Dallas Society Watch, a website that covered local social events and drama. Insurance executive Logan Mitchell's secret shame. Wife flees during pregnancy after discovering 2-year affair. The article was brutal in its detail. Timeline of his relationship with Rebecca. Quotes from anonymous sources about Emily's grace under pressure. Speculation about custody battles and financial settlements. Someone had provided photos. Logan and Rebecca at various Dallas hotspots. Emily at charity events looking increasingly strained over the past year. The comments section was worse. Emily Mitchell was always so kind at our kids' school events. This is heartbreaking. I knew Logan in college, always thought he was selfish, but this is next level. That poor woman. Pregnant and betrayed. Hope she takes him for everything. Rebecca Lane is just as guilty. What kind of woman knowingly destroys a marriage? Logan's professional reputation, already damaged, was now completely destroyed. No client would trust their family's financial future to a man who'd so publicly betrayed his own family. He called his mother, desperate for any kind of support. I saw the article, Susan Mitchell said before he could speak. Your father and I are ashamed, Logan. We raised you to be better than this. Mom, I know I messed up, but messed up? Son, you destroyed the life of a pregnant woman who loved you. You humiliated her publicly while she was carrying your child. This isn't a mistake. This is a pattern of selfishness that we apparently failed to correct when we raised you." The line went quiet for a moment before his mother continued, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Don't call us again until you've figured out how to live with the man you've chosen to become. Your father and I need time to figure out if we even recognize the son we thought we knew." She hung up, leaving Logan completely alone for the first time in his life. Back in Austin, Emily was experiencing the opposite revelation. She was surrounded by love, support, and possibility. Her mother had started knitting tiny blankets for Liam. Her colleagues had thrown her a surprise baby shower. The women from her prenatal class had invited her to join their new mothers group. As she assembled a crib in what would be Liam's nursery, Emily felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. She was creating a safe, stable world for her son, a world built on honesty, respect, and unconditional love. Her phone rang. Dorothy answered it in the kitchen, and Emily could hear her mother's firm voice. "No, she's not available. No, she won't be available. Stop calling this number." Emily didn't even need to ask who it was. Logan's desperation was irrelevant to her now. She had a future to build, a son to prepare for, and a life to live that didn't include room for people who had proven they couldn't be trusted with her heart. That night, as she felt Liam kick for the first time, Emily smiled in the darkness. "It's just you and me, little one," she whispered to her belly, "and that's going to be more than enough." December arrived in Austin with an unexpected warmth, as if the city itself was welcoming Emily's approaching due date. At 32 weeks pregnant, she moved with the careful grace of a woman who had learned to honor her body's needs. Her belly was round and proud now, and Liam's movements had become a constant, reassuring presence. Emily had thrown herself into preparing for single motherhood with the same determination she'd once devoted to saving her marriage. The difference was that this effort brought her joy instead of exhaustion. Her apartment, a cozy two-bedroom place near the college, was nearly ready. The nursery walls were painted a soft sage green, and Dorothy had installed floating shelves filled with classic children's books. Emily had spent evenings reading to her belly, her voice growing stronger with each page. "Good night, moon," she read aloud, one hand resting on her bump. "Good night, stars, good night, air, good night, noises everywhere." Liam responded with a gentle kick against her ribs, and Emily laughed softly. "You like that one, don't you, baby boy?" Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, her friend from prenatal class. "Coffee tomorrow before your appointment? I want to hear about the nursery progress." Emily smiled as she typed back, "Absolutely. Fair warning, though, I might cry if you bring more baby gifts. These hormones are no joke." The response came immediately. "Tears of joy are required at baby showers. It's basically a rule." This was Emily's new normal: genuine friendships, supportive community, and the growing excitement about meeting her son. She'd built a life where she could be vulnerable without fear of betrayal, where her emotions were met with understanding rather than impatience. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was experiencing his complete professional collapse. His insurance firm had officially closed its doors the week before. Without David's partnership, and with their client base decimated, Logan couldn't maintain the overhead. The final straw had been losing the Anderson Group account, a contract worth $500,000 annually that had been with the firm for 8 years. Robert Anderson himself had called to deliver the news. "It's nothing personal, Logan," he'd said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But my wife Carol plays tennis with Emily's book club friends. The story's gotten around, and frankly, we can't be associated with someone who conducts business the way you've conducted your personal life." Logan had tried to argue that his marriage had nothing to do with his professional competence, but Robert had cut him off. "Character matters in this business. If you can lie to your pregnant wife for 2 years, how can I trust you with my company's financial future?" The office space that had once hummed with activity was now empty, except for Logan's personal items and boxes. 20 years of building a reputation, gone in 6 months. His financial situation was becoming desperate. The mortgage on their Dallas house was enormous. They'd bought it when his income was substantial, and Emily had been contributing her teacher's salary. Now, with no steady income and mounting legal fees, foreclosure was becoming a real possibility. His lawyer Brad had been blunt about Emily's divorce petition. "She's asking for minimal alimony," Brad had explained. "Essentially just child support and her share of marital assets. She's not trying to destroy you financially, Logan. She just wants to be free of you." The words stung because they revealed Emily's true nature. Even after everything he'd put her through, she wasn't seeking revenge. She simply wanted him out of her life completely. "What about visitation?" Logan had asked desperately. Brad had shuffled papers uncomfortably. "Logan, you abandoned your pregnant wife after a 2-year affair. She has documented evidence of emotional abuse through neglect. Unless you can prove dramatic personal change, no court is going to force a newborn away from his mother to visit a father with your track record. So that's it? I never see my son? That's up to Emily. And given your history, why would she trust you with her child?" Logan's desperation had driven him to increasingly pathetic attempts to reach Emily. He'd driven to Austin 3 times, only to be turned away by Dorothy, who had threatened to call the police if he didn't stop harassing her daughter. His most recent attempt had been sending a lengthy letter to Emily's workplace, begging for a chance to prove he'd changed. The response had come from Emily's supervisor, Mrs. Garcia. "Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Chambers has asked me to inform you that any further contact attempts will be forwarded directly to her attorney. She is focused on preparing for the birth of her son and does not wish to be disturbed during this important time. Your continued efforts to contact her despite her clearly expressed wishes demonstrate the same disregard for her boundaries that characterized your marriage. Please respect her decision and leave her in peace. Sincerely, Carmen Garcia, Student Services Director." The formal tone of the letter made Logan's situation crystal clear. Emily had moved on so completely that she needed other people to communicate her rejection of him. His drinking had progressed from nightly glasses of whiskey to afternoon beers to morning shots just to face the day. The house that had once been filled with Emily's laughter and warmth felt like a mausoleum of his failures. Rebecca had returned from Denver, but not to resume their relationship. She'd come back to collect her remaining belongings and deliver several devastating blows. "I've been thinking while I was away," she'd said as she packed the jewelry he'd given her, "about what I deserve for the damage you've caused to my reputation." Logan felt a chill. "What do you mean?" "I mean compensation. I gave up 2 years of my life for this relationship. I turned down other opportunities because I believed your promises about leaving your wife. Now I'm branded as the homewrecker who destroyed a pregnant woman's marriage. Rebecca, we're both dealing with consequences." "No, Logan. You're dealing with consequences. I'm dealing with collateral damage." Her voice turned cold. "I want $50,000. "What? I don't have that kind of money anymore." "Then sell something. The watch I bought you, your car, whatever it takes. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how this affair started, including your promises that Emily was cold and frigid, and how you said she trapped you with marriage." Logan stared at her, finally seeing the calculated manipulation he'd been blind to. "You're blackmailing me." Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "I'm protecting myself. You destroyed everything. My reputation, my business relationships, my chances with anyone decent. The least you can do is help me start over somewhere else." After 2 hours of increasingly ugly negotiation, Logan agreed to liquidate his remaining investments to pay her off. It was either that, or face Rebecca's threats to contact Emily directly with invented details about their affair. "I loved what you represented," Rebecca said as she prepared to leave with her check. "Success? Excitement? Someone else's husband who thought he was too good for his ordinary life. I never loved you, Logan. I loved the idea of winning. And now I'm cutting my losses. The difference between us is that I'll survive this. You gave up everything real for something that was never supposed to last." After she left, Logan found himself in Emily's former craft room, surrounded by half-finished projects she'd abandoned when she fled. A baby blanket she'd been knitting was still stretched on its frame, soft yellow yarn that would have been perfect for either a boy or a girl, worked with the careful stitches of a woman who believed she was creating something for the family she loved. Logan picked up the blanket and held it to his chest, finally allowing himself to fully understand what he'd destroyed. Emily hadn't just been his wife, she'd been his home, his anchor, his chance at becoming a better man than he'd ever been alone. He'd traded that for Rebecca's empty promises and his own selfish desires. Now Emily was building a new home 3 hours away, preparing to welcome their son into a world where he would never know his father's voice or feel his arms around him. Logan sank to the floor of the empty room, clutching the unfinished blanket, and finally allowed himself to grieve, not just for what he'd lost, but for the man he'd proven he actually was beneath all his charm and success. In Austin, Emily was putting the finishing touches on Liam's room, surrounded by friends who celebrated her strength and anticipated her joy. She'd found her tribe, her purpose, and her peace. The contrast couldn't have been more complete. One life ending in isolation and regret, another beginning with love and hope. And soon, very soon, Liam would arrive to seal the distance between them forever. February in Austin brought unseasonably warm weather and the kind of golden sunlight that made everything feel possible. Emily, now 37 weeks pregnant, moved through her days with the careful excitement of someone preparing for the most important meeting of her life. Her baby shower had been held the previous weekend at her mother's house, a gathering of 20 women who had become Emily's chosen family over the past 8 months. Jessica from prenatal class, Mrs. Garcia from work, colleagues from the college, neighbors from her apartment complex, and Dorothy's friends who had known Emily since childhood. "You know what strikes me most?" Dorothy had said as they cleaned up afterward, folding tiny onesies and organizing diapers. "You're glowing in a way I never saw during your marriage. Even when things were good with Logan, you were always slightly anxious, like you were waiting for the other shoe to drop." Emily had paused in her organizing, considering her mother's words. "I think I was. I spent so much energy trying to be the perfect wife that I forgot how to just be myself. And now," Emily had smiled, rubbing her belly where Liam was practicing what felt like soccer moves. "Now I know exactly who I am. I'm going to be his mother. Everything else is just details." The nursery was complete now, a peaceful sanctuary done in soft greens and whites with a bookshelf already filled with classics Emily planned to read to her son. The rocking chair sat by the window where morning light would filter in during feeding times. Everything was ready except for the most important element, Liam himself. Dr. Rivera had been pleased with Emily's progress at her latest appointment. "You're handling this pregnancy beautifully," she'd said. "Your blood pressure is perfect. Liam's growth is right on track, and you seem remarkably calm for a first-time mother preparing to go solo." "I don't feel like I'm going solo," Emily had replied honestly. "I have more support now than I had when I was married." It was true. Her support system had grown organically. Women who understood that strength came in many forms, that love didn't require perfection, and that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was start over. Her phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Hospital bag packed? Remember, comfortable going home outfit for you and Liam. I'll be there 30 minutes after you call." Emily smiled as she double-checked her hospital bag for the 3rd time that week. Claire had driven up from Houston to be her labor coach, taking vacation time from her job to ensure Emily wouldn't face delivery alone. "Everything ready, sweetheart?" Dorothy asked, appearing in the doorway with 2 cups of herbal tea. "I think so. It's strange, I'm not scared. Nervous, excited, but not scared. That's because you trust yourself now. You know you can handle whatever comes." Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was discovering just how far a man could fall when every support system abandoned him simultaneously. The foreclosure notice had been posted on his front door that morning. Despite his desperate attempts to negotiate with the bank, his financial situation had become untenable. The house he and Emily had chosen together, where they'd planned to raise children and grow old together, would be sold at auction within 30 days. Logan sat on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes and the debris of a life that had imploded. He'd been packing mechanically, trying to decide what deserved to be saved from the wreckage of his choices. Emily's things had been the hardest. Her books, her craft supplies, the small decorative touches that had made their house a home, he'd left them untouched for months, as if preserving them might somehow preserve the possibility of her return. Now, faced with the reality of moving into a studio apartment he could barely afford, Logan was forced to confront the finality of his situation. His phone rang. His mother's number appeared on the screen for the first time in 2 months. "Hello, Mom," he answered, his voice rough from disuse. "Logan." Susan Mitchell's tone was carefully controlled. "Your father and I heard about the house. News travels fast. Small-town gossip travels to Oklahoma, yes. Logan, we want to help, but you can't be seen supporting someone who destroyed his pregnant wife's life." "I understand." There was a long pause. "That's not what I was going to say. We want to help, but we need to know you understand the severity of what you've done. This isn't about making mistakes, son. This is about who you chose to become." Logan closed his eyes, surrounded by the ghosts of Emily's presence in their empty house. "I destroyed the best thing in my life for someone who never cared about me. I lost my integrity, my reputation, my business, and my family. I understand perfectly. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Try to rebuild, I guess. Try to become someone worthy of, I don't know what. Emily will never forgive me. My son will grow up not knowing my name. Maybe that's for the best. Logan, no, Mom, it is. He'll have Emily, and Emily is worth 10 of me. She'll raise him to be the kind of man I never learned how to be. Susan was quiet for a moment. You're not beyond redemption, son. But redemption requires more than regret. It requires change. After his mother hung up, Logan found himself holding the ultrasound photo that had become his constant torment. 37 weeks now. His son could arrive any day, and Logan would learn about it the same way everyone else would, through gossip, secondhand information, and his own imagination. He'd written dozens of letters to Emily over the past month, each one more desperate than the last. None had been sent. What was the point? She'd made her position clear through her lawyer, through her family, through the absolute silence that met his every attempt at contact. His phone buzzed. A notification from a Dallas gossip blog he'd unfortunately started following. Emily Chambers, formerly Mitchell, spotted at Austin Birth Center this week. Baby watch is on for the woman who became a local hero after leaving her cheating husband. The comment section was brutal in its support for Emily. She looks radiant. That baby is lucky to have such a strong mama. Hope she never looks back. Some people don't deserve second chances. Logan Mitchell is probably the most hated man in Dallas right now. Logan threw his phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall Emily had painted when they'd first moved in together. She'd been so excited about that wall, spending weeks choosing the perfect shade of blue, talking about how it would be the backdrop for all their future family photos. Now the wall was marked with scratches from furniture being moved, faded spots where their wedding photos had hung, and fresh damage from his own self-destruction. That evening, as Logan packed the last of Emily's abandoned possessions into boxes he planned to store indefinitely, he came across their wedding album. He opened it to a photo of Emily during their first dance, her face radiant with joy and trust, looking at him like he was everything she'd ever wanted. The man in that photo felt like a stranger, someone who had possessed everything Logan now knew was valuable and had been too foolish to recognize it. Logan carefully closed the album and placed it in the box marked Emily's Things, a collection of items he couldn't bring himself to discard but had no right to keep. 3 hours away, Emily was experiencing the opposite revelation. As she settled into bed in her peaceful apartment, feeling Liam's gentle movements, she realized she'd never felt more complete. Tomorrow, she would work her final day before maternity leave. Next week, she might hold her son for the first time. In a few months, she'd return to a job she loved, surrounded by people who valued her. She'd built a life worth living, filled with authentic relationships and genuine peace. The storm that had destroyed her marriage had ultimately cleared the way for something much better, a future based on truth instead of illusion, support instead of sacrifice, and love that didn't require her to diminish herself to receive it. As sleep approached, Emily's last conscious thought was a prayer of gratitude for the strength to leave behind what wasn't working, and the courage to build something that was. Emily's contractions started at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in mid-February, gentle waves that pulled her from sleep with a sense of anticipation rather than alarm. She'd been dreaming of holding her son, and waking up to labor felt like the universe's way of saying it was time to make that dream reality. "It's happening," she whispered to the quiet apartment, placing both hands on her belly. "Hi, baby boy. Ready to meet your mama?" Liam responded with a strong kick, as if he was indeed ready to begin the journey into the world. Emily had prepared for this moment with the same methodical care she'd brought to rebuilding her entire life. Her hospital bag sat by the door, Dr. Rivera's number was programmed into speed dial, and Claire was staying at a hotel 10 minutes away, waiting for the call. She timed 3 more contractions, still manageable, still spaced far enough apart that she had time to shower, eat a light breakfast, and call her birth team. "It's time," she told Claire when her sister answered on the first ring. "Oh my God, how are you feeling? Are you in pain? Should I come now?" Emily smiled at Claire's excited panic. "I'm feeling amazing, actually. A little nervous, mostly excited. The contractions are still pretty mild, but they're regular. Can you pick up Mom and meet me at the birth center in about an hour? We'll be there in 30 minutes. Claire, breathe. We have time. This isn't a medical emergency. It's the best day of my life happening exactly the way it's supposed to." By the time Emily arrived at Austin Birth Center, her contractions were stronger but still manageable. The birthing suite she'd toured months earlier was ready. Soft lighting, a large tub for water therapy, and windows overlooking a garden that was just beginning to bloom with early spring flowers. Janet Walsh, the midwife who'd taught her prenatal classes, greeted Emily with the kind of calm confidence that immediately put her at ease. How are we feeling, Mama? Janet asked as she helped Emily settle into the room. Ready? Emily said without hesitation. I've been ready for months. Doctor. Rivera arrived an hour later to check Emily's progress. You're doing beautifully, she said after examining her. About 6 centimeters dilated, and Liam's heartbeat is strong and steady. He's as eager to meet you as you are to meet him. Dorothy held one of Emily's hands while Claire captured every moment with her camera, per Emily's instructions. I want him to see how much love surrounded his arrival, Emily had explained. Even if it's not the family I originally planned, it's the family we chose. The birth progressed with textbook precision. Emily labored with a strength that amazed everyone in the room, including herself. During the most intense contractions, she focused on the same mantra she'd used to survive the divorce. I am stronger than this moment. I can handle whatever comes. At 2:17 p.m., after 11 hours of labor, Liam James Chambers entered the world with a lusty cry that filled the birthing suite with pure joy. Oh my God, Emily sobbed as Janet placed her son on her chest. Oh my God, he's perfect. Hi, baby. Hi, Liam. Mama's here. Liam was indeed perfect. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of healthy baby boy with a shock of dark hair and the kind of alert eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. When Emily spoke, he turned toward her voice, already recognizing the sound that had been his constant companion for 9 months. Look at him, Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face as she photographed Emily's first moments with her son. He knows you're his mama. Dorothy leaned over to stroke Liam's tiny cheek. Welcome to the world, sweet boy. You're so loved already. Emily couldn't stop staring at her son. All the pain of the past year, the betrayal, the loneliness, the fear, seemed to evaporate in the face of this overwhelming love. She'd thought she knew what love was during her marriage, but this was different. This was love without conditions, without fear, without the possibility of betrayal. I'm going to be the best mother I can be, she whispered to Liam as he settled against her chest. I'm going to show you what it means to keep promises, to choose family every day, to love without holding back. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was learning about the birth of his son through the cruelest possible channel, social media. He'd been checking Emily's sister's Instagram obsessively, hoping for any glimpse of information about his child. Claire had kept her account private, but mutual friends sometimes shared updates that Logan could see in his feed. The post appeared at 4:23 p.m. Jessica from Emily's prenatal class had shared a photo of a hospital bracelet and a caption that made Logan's world stop spinning. Baby Liam arrived safely this afternoon. Mama Emily was absolutely incredible, and this little guy is already stealing hearts. So much love surrounding this perfect boy. Baby Liam. New mama. Blessed. Logan stared at the screen until his vision blurred. Liam. His son had a name, a face, hidden in the hospital bracelet photo, and a life that had begun without him. He was a father, and he would never be a dad. The distinction hit him like a physical blow. Anyone could father a child. Logan was living proof of that. But being a father, being present for first smiles and first words and first steps, being someone his son could count on and look up to, that privilege belonged to men who had proven themselves worthy of it. Logan had proven the opposite. His phone rang. His mother's number. Logan? Susan's voice was gentle. I saw online that Emily had the baby, a boy named Liam. Yeah? Logan's voice came out as a croak. He's here. How are you holding up? Logan looked around his sparse studio apartment, the place he'd moved to after losing the house, a space barely large enough for his remaining possessions and completely inadequate for visits from a child, even if such visits were possible. I'm a father who will never know his son, Logan said. I'm 35 years old, broke, alone, and my child is being raised 3 hours away by a woman who has every right to pretend I don't exist. Logan, no, Mom, it's fine. It's what I deserve. Emily is an amazing mother. I could see it in the way she talked about the pregnancy before I destroyed everything. Liam will grow up knowing what unconditional love looks like, what stability feels like, what it means to be someone's first priority. He'll learn all of that from Emily. And what about you? What are you going to do? Logan closed his eyes, thinking about the ultrasound photo he still kept on his bedside table, the one that showed Liam at 8 weeks when everything was still possible. I'm going to try to become the kind of man who might someday deserve forgiveness. Not from Emily, that ship sailed, but from myself. Maybe someday, when Liam is old enough to decide for himself, I can show him that I learned from my mistakes. That's going to take a long time, son. I have nothing but time. Emily has everything that matters. She has him. After his mother hung up, Logan sat in his empty apartment, surrounded by the silence of a life he'd destroyed, imagining Emily holding their son for the first time. He pictured her face, the same radiant joy she'd shown on their wedding day, but this time directed toward someone who would never betray her trust. 3 hours away, Emily was experiencing that exact joy. As evening fell over Austin, she held Liam against her chest, marveling at his perfect tiny fingers and the way he seemed to study her face with serious concentration. "You're going to have such a beautiful life," she told him softly, "full of people who love you exactly as you are. You'll never have to wonder if you're enough, because you'll always be everything to me." Dorothy and Claire had gone home to let Emily rest, but sleep was impossible. She was too busy memorizing every detail of her son's face, too overwhelmed by the magnitude of love filling her chest. A nurse knocked softly and entered with paperwork. "Birth certificate information," she explained gently. "Father's name?" Emily looked down at Liam, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. She thought about Logan, probably learning about the birth through gossip and social media, sitting alone with his regrets. "Leave it blank," Emily said firmly. "This baby has all the family he needs." The nurse nodded understandingly and made the notation. Emily Chambers, no longer Emily Mitchell, had given birth to Liam James Chambers, whose father was officially unknown and whose family consisted of people who had chosen to love him unconditionally. It was, Emily thought as she watched her son sleep, exactly the beginning he deserved. 6 months after Liam's birth, Emily had discovered that motherhood suited her in ways she'd never anticipated. The woman who had once apologized for taking up space was now confidently advocating for her son's needs, her own well-being, and the life she was building with fierce intentionality. Liam was thriving, a chubby, happy baby with his mother's gentle nature and an infectious smile that charmed everyone he met. At 6 months old, he was sitting up on his own, babbling constantly, and showing the kind of secure attachment that child development experts wrote about in textbooks. "He's never fussy at drop-off," marveled Sandra, the director of Little Sprouts Daycare. "Most babies this age have some separation anxiety, but Liam just lights up when he sees us. That's the sign of a child who feels completely secure in his primary attachment." Emily beamed as she watched Liam interact with the other babies, his confidence evident even at such a young age. "He knows he's loved," she said simply. "That makes all the difference." Returning to work at Austin Community College had been easier than Emily expected. Her colleagues had rallied around her, creating a support system that made single motherhood feel manageable rather than overwhelming. Mrs. Garcia had even arranged for Emily to have a flexible schedule that allowed her to pump milk in privacy and leave early for pediatric appointments. "You're glowing again," Jessica observed as they sat in a coffee shop near campus, watching Liam charm the other patrons from his high chair. "Remember when we first met in prenatal class? You were beautiful then, but you looked guarded, like you were protecting yourself from something." Emily considered this as she helped Liam hold his sippy cup. "I think I was protecting myself from disappointment. I'd spent so long being disappointed that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist peacefully. And now? Now I wake up excited to see what Liam discovers each day. Yesterday he figured out how to clap his hands. You would have thought he'd solved world hunger the way I celebrated." Emily's life had developed a rhythm that felt sustainable rather than exhausting. Mornings with Liam before daycare, meaningful work helping students achieve their goals, evenings filled with baby giggles and bedtime stories, and weekends exploring Austin's parks and farmers markets with her son. She'd found peace in her independence, something that surprised her after years of defining herself through marriage. "You look so content," Claire observed during their weekly FaceTime call, Liam babbling happily in the background. "Like you finally figured out who you are." "I think I have," Emily said, adjusting Liam on her lap. "I'm not someone's wife anymore trying to be perfect for approval. I'm just me, Liam's mom, and that feels like enough, more than enough. Look at how happy he is." Emily looked down at her son, who was currently trying to grab the phone to put it in his mouth. "He's never known anything but stability and love. He doesn't have to wonder if he's enough, because he always is." "And you? Any regrets about not looking for someone new?" Emily was quiet for a moment, bouncing Liam gently. "None at all. I know what real love looks like because I feel it for Liam every day. I'm not interested in settling for anything less than that level of commitment and respect. And honestly, I'm too busy building our life to worry about adding complications." Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was struggling through his own version of rebuilding, though his progress was far more painful and uncertain. After losing his partnership with David and about 40% of his client base, Logan had been forced to downsize dramatically. He'd managed to avoid complete business collapse by taking on smaller accounts and working twice as hard for half the income. The transition from owning a successful firm to scrambling for clients was humbling and exhausting. Eventually, when keeping his reduced practice became unsustainable, he'd found work as a junior associate at a small insurance firm, a significant step down from owning his own company, but steady income that allowed him to maintain his small apartment and begin paying down the debts accumulated during his business decline. His new boss, Tom Bradley, was a no-nonsense man in his 60s who'd hired Logan despite his reputation. "I believe in second chances," Tom had said during the interview, "but I don't believe in third chances. You screw up here, and you're done in this industry forever." Logan had thrown himself into the work with the desperate energy of a man trying to prove his worth to himself as much as to others. He arrived early, stayed late, and took on the accounts that other associates avoided: difficult clients, complicated cases, anything that might demonstrate his commitment to rebuilding his professional integrity. His personal life remained largely empty. The few friends who still spoke to him did so with obvious discomfort, and his attempts to date had been disasters. Word of his betrayal of Emily had spread through Dallas's social circles like wildfire, making him radioactive to any woman with sense. The loneliness was crushing, but Logan was beginning to understand that it was also necessary. He'd spent his adult life surrounded by people who'd enabled his selfishness or been too polite to challenge his behavior. Now, stripped of those buffers, he was forced to confront who he actually was when no one was watching. He'd started therapy, something he'd resisted during his marriage, claiming he didn't need help. Dr. Amanda Walsh was a straight-talking woman who specialized in helping people rebuild after moral failures. "You're focused on external validation," she'd observed during a recent session. "You want to prove to the world that you've changed, so they'll forgive you and let you back into the club. But that's not how real change works." Then how does it work? You have to become someone different when no one's watching, when there's no audience to impress, no immediate reward for good behavior. Can you be honest when lying would be easier? Can you keep commitments when breaking them would be more convenient? Can you prioritize someone else's needs when your own desires pull in a different direction? Logan had left that session understanding that his real work was just beginning. The external consequences of his betrayal, lost business, damaged reputation, social isolation, were painful but temporary. The internal work of becoming someone trustworthy was much harder and would take much longer. He'd also started attending a support group for men who'd destroyed their families through infidelity. The meetings were held in a church basement, led by a man named Robert who'd lost his wife and children 15 years earlier, and had spent the time since trying to understand why good people made devastating choices. "The thing about betraying someone who loves you," Robert had said during Logan's first meeting, "is that you don't just hurt them. You kill something in yourself. The part that was capable of receiving unconditional love dies because you've proven you don't deserve it." Logan had recognized the truth in those words immediately. Emily's love had been the best thing in his life, and he'd systematically destroyed it through selfishness and cowardice. Now he had to learn how to live as someone who'd thrown away something irreplaceable. His phone buzzed with a notification he'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. A social media post from one of Emily's friends showing Liam at a playground, laughing as Emily pushed him on a baby swing. The caption read, "Best mama and the happiest baby. These two are living their best life in Austin. Single, mom strong. Blessed baby." Logan stared at the photo for a long time. Liam looked like a perfect blend of both parents. Emily's gentle eyes, Logan's dark hair, and a smile that was purely his own. He was clearly thriving, dressed in bright colors, and looking at his mother with the kind of adoration that spoke of absolute security. Emily looked radiant, not in the careful, anxious way she'd looked during their marriage, but with the natural glow of someone who was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Logan saved the photo, adding it to a folder on his phone labeled Liam, a collection of glimpses into his son's life that he'd gathered from social media posts and mutual friends' updates. It was pathetic, he knew, but it was the only connection to his child he was likely to ever have. That evening, as Logan sat in his sparse apartment, he wrote another letter he would never send. "Dear Liam, today I saw a picture of you laughing with your mom at a playground. You're 6 months old now, sitting up. exploring the world with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're completely loved. I want you to know that you have a father who thinks about you every day, who wishes he could be the kind of man your mother could trust with your heart. I want you to know that my absence from your life isn't because I don't love you. It's because I love you enough to not disrupt the beautiful, stable world your mother is building for you. Maybe someday when you're old enough to understand, we'll meet. Maybe by then I'll have become someone worthy of being called your father. Until then, I'm grateful that you have Emily, who will show you what real love looks like. I'm sorry for all the ways I've failed you before you were even born. Love. Logan folded the letter and placed it in a box with all the others. Dozens of unsent messages to a son who would grow up not knowing his father's name. It was, he reflected, exactly what he deserved. And more importantly, exactly what Liam and Emily deserved too. 1 year after Liam's birth, Emily stood in the backyard of the small house she'd just purchased in Austin's Bolden Creek neighborhood, watching her son take his first wobbly steps across the grass toward her outstretched arms. "Come to Mama, sweet boy," she called, her voice bright with encouragement as Liam tottered forward with the determined concentration of someone conquering the world one step at a time. He made it 3 steps before sitting down hard on his diaper-padded bottom. But instead of crying, he clapped his hands and babbled excitedly, as if he'd just accomplished something magnificent. "He did it!" Claire squealed from the porch, where she and Dorothy were setting up for Liam's first birthday party. "Emily, did you see? He walked." Emily scooped up her son, spinning him around as he giggled with pure joy. "You did it, baby boy. You're walking." The backyard was already filling with guests, friends from work, mothers from Liam's daycare, neighbors who'd welcomed Emily into the community with open arms. The life Emily had built in Austin was rich with genuine connections, people who knew her story and respected her strength. "You look amazing," Jessica observed, appearing at Emily's side with a cup of coffee. "Confident, peaceful, completely in your element." Emily bounced Liam on her hip, looking around at the gathering she'd organized entirely on her own. "I feel like I finally know who I am. Not someone's wife, not someone trying to be perfect for approval, just me, Emily, Liam's mom. That's enough, more than enough," Jessica agreed with a smile. "You're thriving." The party was a celebration not just of Liam's first year, but of Emily's complete transformation. The woman who had once apologized for existing was now confidently hosting gatherings in her own home, making decisions based on her values rather than fear, and raising a son who radiated security and joy. As guests arrived, Emily realized she'd created something she'd never had before, a chosen family built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation or convenience. Mrs. Garcia brought homemade tamales and stories about her own experience as a single mother. Sandra from the daycare contributed a photo album of Liam's first-year milestones. Even Dr. Rivera stopped by with her own children, delighted to see how well both Emily and Liam were thriving. "Speech!" someone called out as they gathered around Liam's high chair for cake time. Emily looked around at the faces surrounding her, people who had witnessed her journey from broken wife to confident mother, who had supported her without judgment, who celebrated her victories without needing credit for them. "A year ago, I thought my life was ending," she began, her voice steady and clear. "I thought losing my marriage meant losing my future, my identity, my chance at happiness." Liam babbled from his high chair, reaching for the birthday cake with its single candle, and the crowd laughed warmly. "Instead, I discovered that my life was just beginning. This little boy taught me that love doesn't have to hurt, that family doesn't require perfection, and that sometimes the most beautiful things grow in the spaces left by what we thought we couldn't live without." She looked at Liam, who was now successfully smearing frosting across his face and tray. "Happy birthday, sweet boy. Thank you for teaching me what unconditional love really means." Meanwhile, in Dallas, Logan was experiencing his own form of reckoning on this anniversary. He'd known it was Liam's first birthday. The date was etched into his memory like scar tissue. He'd taken the day off work, unable to imagine focusing on insurance policies, while his son celebrated a milestone Logan had no right to witness. The support group meeting that evening was smaller than usual, just 4 men sitting in the church basement sharing their stories of loss and the slow, difficult work of becoming better people. "Today's my son's first birthday," Logan said when it was his turn to speak. "I found out through Instagram that he's walking now. His first steps happened in the backyard of the house his mother bought, a house I'll never see, in a life I'll never be part of." Robert, the group leader, nodded with understanding. "How does that feel?" Logan considered the question. 6 months ago, the answer would have been pure anguish, desperate regret, plans for grand gestures that might somehow earn forgiveness. Now the truth was more complex. It feels right, Logan said slowly. That sounds terrible, but it's honest. Emily has built exactly the kind of life I should have given her when we were married. She's confident, peaceful, surrounded by people who value her. Liam is growing up secure and loved. They're both better off without the chaos I brought to their lives. That's growth, Robert observed. Accepting that love sometimes means staying away. Logan had made significant progress over the past year. His work performance had earned him a promotion and his boss's grudging respect. His therapy sessions with Dr. Foster had helped him understand the patterns of selfishness that had destroyed his marriage. He'd paid off most of his debts and was slowly rebuilding a life based on humility rather than entitlement. But the most important change was internal. Logan had stopped trying to find ways back into Emily and Liam's lives and started focusing on becoming someone who might deserve forgiveness someday, even if that forgiveness never came. I've been writing letters to my son, he continued. Letters I'll never send. I tell him about who I am now, what I've learned, how sorry I am for not being the father he deserved from the beginning. Maybe someday, when he's old enough to understand, I'll give them to him. Maybe not. Either way, writing them helps me remember why I need to keep working on myself. After the meeting, Logan drove to the cemetery where his grandfather was buried. Walter Mitchell had been the kind of man Logan was trying to become, someone who kept his word, honored his commitments, and put his family's well-being above his own desires. I wish you were here to meet your great-grandson, Logan said to the headstone. His name is Liam and he's perfect. He's got Emily's gentle nature and what I hope are some of the better parts of our family's stubbornness. He'll grow up knowing what integrity looks like because Emily will teach him. Logan pulled out his phone and showed the headstone a photo he'd saved from Emily's friend's social media. Liam in a tiny tuxedo t-shirt at his birthday party, chocolate cake smeared across his grinning face. Emily did that, created a child who radiates joy and security. She's the kind of parent you were, Grandpa, the kind I never learned how to be. As Logan drove home to his modest apartment, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness, exactly, but acceptance. He'd destroyed the most important relationship of his life, lost the chance to raise his son, and spent a year learning to live with consequences that would never fully go away. But he'd also stopped lying to himself, stopped making excuses, and started the long process of becoming someone he could respect. That evening he wrote another letter to Liam. Dear son, today you turned 1 year old. I saw pictures of your party, your first steps, your face covered in birthday cake. You look so happy, so loved, so completely secure in the world your mother has built for you. I want you to know that I'm proud of the man I'm becoming, even though it's too late for us to be a family. I'm learning what it means to keep my word, to think about other people's needs before my own, to build a life based on truth instead of convenience. Maybe these lessons will matter to someone someday. Maybe there's a woman out there who will benefit from the ways I'm learning to love without selfishness, or children who will have a better father because of the work I'm doing now. It won't be you, and that's the hardest truth I've ever had to accept. But watching you thrive with your mother has taught me that love sometimes means wanting someone's happiness more than your own presence in their life. Happy birthday, Liam. I love you enough to stay away. Your father, Logan sealed the letter and placed it with all the others in the box he kept in his closet. A record of a father's love for a son who would grow up never knowing his name. It was, he reflected as he prepared for bed, exactly what Emily and Liam deserved. A life free from the complications of his presence, filled instead with people who had earned the right to be there. 3 hours away, Emily was tucking Liam into his crib in their new house, singing the same lullaby she'd hummed to her belly during pregnancy. Today was a good day, wasn't it, sweet boy? She whispered as Liam's eyes grew heavy. So many people who love you. So many reasons to celebrate. Liam reached up and touched Emily's face with his tiny hand, and she felt the same overwhelming love that had sustained her through the darkest period of her life. Tomorrow we'll have another adventure, she promised. And the next day and the day after that, just you and me and everyone who chooses to love us. That's more than enough. As she turned off the light and headed downstairs to where Dorothy was finishing the cleanup from the party, Emily realized she'd achieved something she'd never thought possible. A life that felt complete exactly as it was, requiring no one's validation or participation to be beautiful. She'd lost a marriage but found herself. She'd been betrayed but learned to trust again. She'd been abandoned but created a family. Logan had taught her what love wasn't. Liam had taught her what love was. And Emily had taught herself that she was strong enough to build happiness on her own terms, surrounded by people who had proven they deserved a place in the life she was creating. It was, she thought, as she accepted her mother's proud hug and looked around at the life she'd built through her own strength and determination, exactly the ending she and Liam deserved. 3 years later, the autumn afternoon in Austin was perfect for a playground visit. Warm enough for Liam to run around in his favorite dinosaur t-shirt, cool enough for Emily to enjoy her coffee without melting. At 4 years old, Liam was a whirlwind of energy and curiosity, fearlessly climbing jungle gyms and making friends with every child he met. "Mama, watch this," he called out, hanging upside down from the monkey bars with the kind of confidence that made Emily's heart swell with pride and terror in equal measure. "I'm watching, brave boy, be careful," Emily called back from the bench where she sat grading papers from her night classes. She'd completed her master's degree in counseling the year before, and was now working toward her license as a family therapist, specializing in helping women rebuild after betrayal. Her life had taken on a rhythm that felt both purposeful and sustainable. Days at the college helping students navigate their academic journeys, evenings with Liam exploring Austin's parks and libraries, weekends filled with the chosen family she'd built, Dorothy, Claire, Jessica, and a circle of friends who had proven their loyalty through presence rather than words. "Ms. Emily," called Maria Santos, the young single mother Emily had helped years ago, who was now a registered nurse and one of Emily's closest friends. "Liam's showing off for the new kids again." Emily looked up to see her son demonstrating how to properly slide down the big slide to a group of younger children, his natural leadership qualities already evident. He was patient with the scared ones, encouraging with the hesitant ones, and protective of anyone who needed help. "He gets that from you," Maria observed, settling beside Emily on the bench. "That way of making everyone feel included and safe." Emily watched her son with the kind of deep contentment she'd never experienced during her marriage. "He's never known anything but unconditional love. It shows." "Any regrets?" Maria asked gently. She was one of the few people who knew Emily's full story, having been there through the final stages of her transformation. Emily considered the question seriously. "About leaving Logan? Never. About Liam not having a father figure? Sometimes I wonder, but then I watch him interact with the world and I see how secure he is. He knows he's loved completely. He's never had to question his worth or wonder if someone's going to abandon him. That's worth more than having a father who couldn't be trusted." Liam ran over, cheeks flushed from playing, and climbed onto Emily's lap with the easy affection of a child who had never been rejected. "Mama, can we get ice cream?" I shared my crackers with the new girl and she said her mama might let her have ice cream too if I asked nice. Emily smiled, recognizing Liam's natural diplomacy skills. "Let me meet her mama first and then we'll see about ice cream." As they walked toward the ice cream truck, Emily felt her phone buzz. A text from Jessica. "Saw the news about Logan. Thought you should know." Emily's stomach tightened slightly. She'd successfully avoided news about Logan for 3 years, focusing entirely on building her future rather than dwelling on her past. But curiosity won. "What news?" she texted back. "DUI arrest. Lost his job again. It's in the paper." Emily felt a familiar pang, not of longing or regret, but of sadness for the man Logan could have been if he'd chosen differently. She deleted the text thread without responding and tucked her phone away. That evening, after Liam had been bathed, read to and tucked into bed with his collection of stuffed animals, Emily sat in her living room with a cup of tea and reflected on how far they'd both come. Their house was small but perfect for them. 2 bedrooms, a backyard where Liam could play, and walls covered with his artwork and photos of their adventures together. It was a home built on stability, honesty, and joy, rather than obligation or fear. Her phone rang. Dorothy's nightly check-in. "How's my grandson?" Dorothy asked, settling into her own evening routine back at her house just 20 minutes away. Exhausted from a full day of conquering playground equipment and making friends. "How was your book club?" "Enlightening as always. We finished reading Educated tonight. Lots of discussion about the strength it takes to leave toxic families and build something better." Dorothy paused. "Speaking of which, Claire mentioned you heard about Logan today." Emily wasn't surprised her sister had already shared the news. Their family had no secrets anymore. "I did. It's sad, but it doesn't change anything for us." "Good. You've built something beautiful, Emily. Liam is thriving. You're helping other women find their strength, and you've never been happier. Logan's choices are his to live with. After hanging up, Emily checked on Liam one more time, finding him sprawled across his bed with his arms around his favorite teddy bear, a gift from Claire that had become his most treasured possession. "Sweet dreams, my brave boy," she whispered, brushing his dark hair away from his forehead. "Mama loves you more than all the stars." Meanwhile, 200 miles away in Dallas, Logan was experiencing the consequences of his latest poor decision. The DUI arrest had cost him his third job in 3 years. His drinking had progressed from social lubrication to daily necessity, and his ability to maintain professional relationships had deteriorated accordingly. At 38, he was living in a rundown studio apartment, working temporary jobs when he could find them, and struggling with the reality that his life had never recovered from the choices he'd made 5 years earlier. His support group had expelled him after multiple relapses. His parents had stopped taking his calls after he'd asked them for money one too many times. His few remaining acquaintances tolerated him out of pity rather than affection. But the lowest point had come 6 months earlier, when he'd attempted to contact Emily through her work email, begging for a chance to meet Liam. The response had come not from Emily, but from her attorney. "Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Chambers has made her position clear regarding contact from you. Any further attempts to reach her or her son will be considered harassment and will be prosecuted accordingly. Ms. Chambers has built a stable, loving home for her child, who knows nothing about you and has never asked about a father. She will not risk his security to satisfy your desire for contact. Do not contact this office or Ms. Chambers again. Respectfully, Sarah Williams, attorney at law." The letter had shattered Logan's last hope of redemption through grand gestures or persistent appeals. Emily had moved on so completely that his existence was irrelevant to her happiness. The realization had driven him deeper into drinking, which had led to the DUI, which had cost him his job, which had brought him to this moment, sitting alone in his apartment on a Tuesday night surrounded by empty bottles and the wreckage of a life that had never recovered from his betrayal. His phone buzzed, a notification from Facebook, showing him a memory from 5 years ago, a photo of him and Emily at a charity gala, both dressed up and smiling at the camera. Emily's smile had been genuine then, trusting, full of love for the man she thought she'd married. Logan studied his own face in the photo and barely recognized the confident, successful man he'd once been. That man had possessed everything: a beautiful wife who adored him, a thriving business, respect in his community, and the promise of a future filled with shared dreams. That man had thrown it all away for 2 years of meaningless sex with a woman who had abandoned him the moment things became complicated. Logan deleted the Facebook app from his phone and threw the device across the room, watching it shatter against the wall just as his life had shattered against the rocks of his own selfishness. 3 hours away, Emily was falling asleep in her comfortable bed, planning tomorrow's activities with Liam and looking forward to another day of the peaceful, purposeful life she'd built from the ashes of her broken marriage. She slept deeply, surrounded by love and security, while Logan lay awake in his empty apartment, haunted by the ghost of what he'd destroyed and the man he'd chosen not to become. The contrast was complete, the consequences permanent, and the lesson crystal clear. Actions have consequences, character matters, and some mistakes echo for a lifetime. Emily had learned that love shouldn't require you to diminish yourself. Logan had learned that some things, once broken, can never be repaired. And somewhere in Austin, a 4-year-old boy slept peacefully in his bed, surrounded by unconditional love and completely unaware that he'd been saved from chaos before he was old enough to remember it. It was, in the end, exactly the story each of them deserved. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like to help me out, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
Elena Carter stared at her phone screen, her thumb hovering over the send button. The Christmas lights from her tiny apartment window cast colorful shadows across her face as she reread the message for the 10th time. This was it. After 3 months of subtle flirting with her coworker, James Whitaker, she was finally going to make her move. This Christmas? "You're on my wish list," she whispered to herself, testing how the words sounded. Her best friend Rachel had helped her craft the perfect message. Something bold yet playful. Elena took a deep breath and hit send before she could change her mind. the message delivered with a satisfying swoosh. Alina set her phone face down on her coffee table and grabbed the mug of hot chocolate she'd been nursing. Her small studio apartment was decorated with modest Christmas decorations, a tiny tree in the corner adorned with handmade ornaments, and string lights that she'd found on sale last year. Working as a bookstore manager didn't pay much, but Alina had made her space cozy and warm. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. Alina's heart jumped as she reached for it, expecting a flirty response from James. Instead, she saw a reply from a number she didn't recognize. Interesting. I don't usually make wish lists, but I'm intrigued. Who is this? Alina's stomach dropped. She frantically scrolled up to check the contact name she'd messaged. Her face went pale. Instead of James Whittaker, the message had gone to Derek Morrison. She must have clicked the wrong contact when she was rushing. Derek Morrison. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but Alina couldn't place it. She'd probably saved his number from some work-related thing months ago and forgotten about it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm so sorry. That message was meant for someone else. Please just delete it and forget it happened. The 3 dots indicating he was typing appeared almost instantly. Too late. You've piqued my curiosity. Tell me, mysterious wish list maker, what makes someone deserve to be on your Christmas list? Alina groaned, burying her face in her hands. This was mortifying. She should just block the number and pretend this never happened. But something about his response made her smile despite her embarrassment. He seemed amused rather than annoyed. Look, I'm really embarrassed. Can we just pretend this never happened? Where's the fun in that? Besides, it's almost Christmas. Shouldn't we embrace a little holiday magic, even if it comes from a wrong number? Alina found herself laughing. Whoever this Derek Morrison was, he had a point. And there was something charming about his persistence. Fine, I'm Alina, and you are Derek, and since you put me on your wish list, I think it's only fair I know more about you. Coffee tomorrow? Alina's fingers froze over the keyboard. Was this stranger seriously asking her out based on an accidentally sent text message? This was crazy. She should absolutely say no. I don't meet strangers from wrong numbers, she typed back. Technically, you already have my number saved, so we're not complete strangers. Plus, it's a public coffee shop. It's very safe. Consider it my Christmas present to you, since I'm apparently on your wish list. Alina bit her lip, weighing her options. Rachel would tell her she was insane for even considering it. But something about this whole situation felt like fate. What were the odds of accidentally texting someone right before Christmas? Okay, but if you turn out to be creepy, I'm leaving immediately. Fair enough. Rosewood Cafe? Tomorrow at 2? I promise I'm only slightly creepy. Lena smiled at her phone, shaking her head at her own boldness. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. The next afternoon, Lena arrived at Rosewood Cafe 15 minutes early, her nerves getting the better of her. She'd changed outfits 3 times before settling on a forest green sweater dress and brown boots. Her dark hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders. And she'd applied just enough makeup to look. It's put together without seeming like she'd tried too hard. The cafe was decorated beautifully for Christmas. With garlands draped across the windows and a massive tree in the corner, Alina ordered a peppermint mocha and found a table by the window, where she could watch for her mysterious date. At exactly 2 o'clock. The cafe door opened, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. The man who walked in was nothing like she'd imagined. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair that was perfectly styled, yet somehow looked effortlessly tousled. He wore an expensive-looking charcoal coat over a black sweater and dark jeans, but it was his face that made Elena's heart skip. Strong jawline, striking blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, and a confident smile that suggested he was used to getting what he wanted. Their eyes met across the cafe, and recognition flashed in his expression. He walked toward her with the kind of easy confidence that came from someone who'd never doubted himself. "Alina?" he asked, his voice smooth and deep. She nodded, suddenly unable to form words. This was Derek Morrison? The man she'd accidentally texted looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the chair across from her.
Please?
Alina managed, finding her voice. Derek removed his coat, revealing broad shoulders that the sweater did nothing to hide. He ordered a black coffee from the server and turned his full attention to Alina. His gaze was intense, but not uncomfortable, like he was genuinely interested in her. So, he said, leaning back in his chair with an amused smile, "Tell me about the lucky guy who was supposed to receive that message." Lena felt her cheeks warm. "Do we have to talk about that?" "Absolutely. It's the reason we're here." "Fine, his name is James. We work together at Hartley. Books. I've been trying to get the courage to tell him I'm interested for months. And a text message was your grand plan?" Derek raised an eyebrow, but his tone was teasing rather than judgmental. "It seemed like a good idea at the time," Alina defended, unable to suppress a smile. "My friend Rachel convinced me it was romantic." "It is romantic," Derek agreed. "Just ended up going to the wrong romantic interest." Alina laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing. "You're not exactly what I expected when I agreed to meet you." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone less attractive. Someone who didn't look like they walked off a movie set." Derek's smile widened, and Alina realized what she'd just said. Her face flamed red. "I mean, you're obviously very attractive, but I didn't mean to say that out loud," she stammered. "Don't apologize. I think you're beautiful too," Derek said simply, his blue eyes holding hers. The directness of his statement left Alina momentarily speechless. Men didn't usually talk to her like this, with such straightforward honesty. She was used to awkward small talk and tentative compliments. "So what do you do, Derek?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation to safer ground. "I'm in hospitality," he said vaguely. "Hotels, mostly. What about you? You said you work at a bookstore?" "I manage Hartley Books downtown. It's a small independent shop. Nothing fancy, but I love it. I've always loved books." Derek leaned forward, genuinely interested. "What kind of books?" For the next hour, they talked. Alina told him about her favorite novels, about the regular customers who came in every week, about the author event she was planning for January. Derek shared stories about his travels, places he'd been, and hotels he'd stayed in. He was careful not to mention anything too specific about his work. And Alina didn't push. What struck Alina most was how easy it was to talk to him. Despite his obvious wealth and good looks, Derek didn't make her feel inferior. He listened when she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and laughed at her jokes. By the time they finished their second round of coffee, Alina had almost forgotten this had started as an accidental text. "I should probably go," Alina said reluctantly, noticing it was getting dark outside. "I have inventory to finish at the shop tomorrow morning. Can I see you again?" Derek asked as he helped her into her coat. Alina hesitated. This had been wonderful, but she still knew almost nothing about this man. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because this is crazy. We met because of a wrong number. You could be anyone." Derek pulled out his phone and handed it to her. "Google me." Lena took the phone hesitantly and typed his name into the search bar. Her eyes widened as the results loaded. Derek Morrison, CEO of Morrison Hotels, one of the largest luxury hotel chains in the country. Net worth estimated at over $2 billion. Recent photos of him at charity galas, business conferences, always in expensive suits with beautiful women on his arm. She handed the phone back, her expression unreadable. "You're a billionaire. Does that change things?" Derek asked carefully. Should Elena said honestly. "We're from completely different worlds." "Or maybe we're from the same world, just different tax brackets," Derek countered. "Give me a chance to prove this isn't about money or status. One more date. If you still think we're too different, I'll respect that." Elena studied his face, looking for any sign of insincerity. All she saw was genuine interest and hope. "One more date," she agreed, "but somewhere normal. No fancy restaurants or private jets." Derek's smile was radiant. "Deal? How about ice skating? There's a public rink downtown. Ice skating sounds perfect." As Derek walked her to her car, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken an unexpected turn. She'd sent a flirty message to the wrong person, somehow ended up having coffee with a billionaire who made her laugh and didn't make her feel small. It was the kind of thing that only happened in movies or romance novels, but as Derek kissed her hand goodbye and promised to text her about the skating date, Alina allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this Christmas was going to be more magical than she'd ever imagined. She drove home with a smile on her face, completely unaware that Derek Morrison stood in the parking lot long after her car disappeared, already planning how to make their next date unforgettable. For the first time in years, the billionaire hotel mogul had found something money couldn't buy. Genuine connection with someone who didn't know or care about his wealth. And it had all. Started with a message meant for someone else. The ice skating rink was decorated with thousands of twinkling lights that reflected off the ice like stars. Alina stood at the edge, lacing up her rental skates, while Derek finished tying his own. She couldn't help but notice how different he looked tonight in jeans and a simple navy sweater, a knit scarf wrapped around his neck. He looked almost normal, if you ignored the expensive watch on his wrist and the way people seemed to recognize him as they passed. "Fair warning," Alina said, as she stood up shakily. "I haven't skated since I was 12, and I wasn't good at it then." Derek grinned, standing with the easy grace of someone who was naturally athletic. "Good thing I'm an excellent teacher." He offered his hand, and Alina took it, letting him guide her onto the ice. Her ankles wobbled immediately, but Derek's grip was steady and strong. They started slowly, moving along the edge of the rink, while Christmas music played through the speakers overhead. "See? You're doing great," Derek encouraged as Alina managed a few strokes without falling. "I'm clinging to you for dear life." "That's not the same as doing great," Alina laughed. "I don't mind being clung to," Derek said. Pulling her a little closer, they skated in comfortable silence for a while, falling into an easy rhythm. Alina found herself relaxing, enjoying the cold air on her cheeks and the warmth of Derek's hand in hers. Around them, families and couples glided past, but Alina felt like they were in their own little bubble. "Can I ask you something?" Alina said after a while. "Anything? Why are you really here? A man like you could be with anyone. Why waste time on someone you met through a wrong number?" Derek slowed their pace, turning to face her. His blue eyes were serious. "Because you're real, Alina. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Most people I meet either want something from me or they're intimidated by the money. But when you texted me, you had no idea who I was. And even after you found out, you still looked at me like I was just a regular guy." "You are just a regular guy," Alina said softly. "An absurdly wealthy regular guy, but still." "Exactly," Derek smiled. "That's why I'm here." Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Before Alina could respond, a woman's voice cut through the moment like a knife. "Derek Morrison. As I live and breathe." They both turned to see a stunning blonde woman gliding toward them on the ice. She wore a white fur coat over designer athletic wear, and her makeup was flawless despite the cold. Everything about her screamed money and privilege. "Vanessa," Derek said, and Alina didn't miss the tension that entered his voice. "What are you doing here?" "Ice skating, obviously," Vanessa said, her eyes sliding to Alina with barely concealed disdain. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" "Alina, this is Vanessa Hartley." "Vanessa, this is Alina Carter," Derek said stiffly. Vanessa's smile was all teeth and no warmth. "How lovely. Tell me, Alina, how did you meet Derek? Through business?" "Actually, we met through a text message," Alina said, lifting her chin despite feeling completely out of her depth next to this glamorous woman. "How modern," Vanessa said, but her tone suggested she found it anything but charming. She turned her attention back to Derek. "Daddy's having his Christmas gala next week. He's expecting you, of course. I assume you'll bring someone appropriate." The emphasis on appropriate wasn't lost on Alina. She felt Derek's hand tighten on hers. "My plans are my own business," Vanessa, Derek said coolly. Of course, Vanessa smiled sweetly. "Well, I'll let you two get back to your charming little date." "It was nice meeting you, Emma." "Alina," she corrected, but Vanessa was already skating away. The magic of the evening had evaporated. Alina pulled her hand from Derek's and skated toward the exit. "Alina, wait!" Derek called, catching up to her easily. "I need to get off the ice," Alina said. her voice tight. They made it to the benches, and Alina started unlacing her skates with shaking fingers. Derek sat beside her, his expression troubled. "I'm sorry about Vanessa. She's my ex-girlfriend, and she doesn't handle rejection well." "She's beautiful," Alina said quietly. "Hey. She's also manipulative and cruel," Derek countered. "Why do you think she's my ex?" Alina finished removing her skates and looked at him. "Derek, she's right. We're from different worlds. You belong at galas and charity events with women who wear fur coats and know which fork to use at fancy dinners. I manage a bookstore and shop at thrift stores. None of that matters to me," Derek insisted. "But it matters to everyone else in your life," Alina said. I saw the way she looked at me. Like I was nobody. And honestly, in your world, I am nobody. "Don't say that." Derek's voice was almost angry. "You're not nobody. You're smart and kind and genuine. You make me laugh. You make me want to be better." "For how long?" Alina asked, her eyes filling with tears. "Until the novelty wears off? Until your friends and family make you realize you could do so much better?" Derek took her hands, forcing her to look at him. "Listen to me. I know this is fast. I know we barely know each other. But I haven't felt this way about anyone in years, maybe ever. Don't let Vanessa's poison ruin what we could have." Lena wanted to believe him. Every fiber of her being wanted to throw caution to the wind and trust that this could work. But the fear was overwhelming. "I need time to think," she said finally. Derek's face fell, but he nodded. "Okay. Take all the time you need. But Alina, I'm not giving up on us. Not yet." The next few days were torture for Alina. She threw herself into work, organizing the holiday book displays and helping customers find perfect gifts. But her mind kept drifting back to Derek, to the way he'd held her hand while skating, to the hurt in his eyes when she'd pulled away. Rachel found her restocking shelves on Christmas Eve morning, clearly lost in thought. "Okay, that's it," Rachel declared, pulling a book out of Elena's hands. "You've been moping for 3 days? Either call him or get over him. But stop torturing yourself. It's not that simple," Alina protested. "Yes, it is. You like him. He likes you. Everything else is just noise. Easy for you to say. You didn't see his ex-girlfriend. She looked like a supermodel, and she made it very clear that I don't belong in his world." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Who cares what she thinks? The question is, do you want to be with him?" "Of course I do," Alina admitted. "But wanting something and it being realistic are two different things. Life is short, Alina. Take the risk." Before Alina could respond, the bell above the shop door chimed. Both women turned to see Derek walking in, looking slightly nervous. He wore a dark coat and carried a large shopping bag. "Hi," he said, his eyes finding Elena's immediately. "Hi," she breathed. Rachel looked between them and grinned. "I'm going to go reorganize the back room." Very thoroughly. For at least 30 minutes, she disappeared before Alina could protest. Derek approached slowly, like he was afraid she might bolt. "I know you said you needed time, but it's Christmas Eve, and I couldn't stand the thought of not seeing you." Derek Alina started, but he held up a hand. "Please, let me say this. I've spent the last 3 days thinking about what you said, about us being from different worlds. And you're right, in a way. We do come from different circumstances. But that doesn't mean we can't build our own world together." He set the shopping bag on the counter and pulled out a beautifully wrapped package. "I got you something. Before you protest, it's not expensive. I promise." Alina took the package with trembling hands and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a leather-bound journal with her initials embossed on the cover. Tucked inside the first page was a handwritten note. "Read it," Derek urged softly. Alina unfolded the note, her eyes scanning Derek's neat handwriting. "Alina, this journal is for all the stories we're going to write together. Some will be good, some will be challenging, but they'll all be ours. I can't promise that my world won't sometimes be difficult to navigate, but I can promise that I'll be beside you every step of the way. You're not alone in this. Love, Derek." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. "You wrote love?" "I did," Derek confirmed, stepping closer. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Alina Carter." I know it's fast, and I know it's complicated, but it's true. And I'll wait as long as you need me to. But I need you to know that I'm all in. Lena looked at the journal in her hands, at the man standing before her with his heart laid bare, and made her decision. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. Derek's arms came around her immediately, pulling her close as he deepened the kiss. It was different from their first kiss, more desperate, more certain. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. I'm falling in love with you too, Alina whispered, and it terrifies me. Good. Derek smiled against her lips. The best things always do. Come with me to the gala. Meet my world, and let me show you that you belong wherever you want to be. Alina took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, but if your family hates me, I'm blaming you. Hey. Derek laughed, the sound full of relief and joy. Deal. The Morrison family Christmas gala was exactly as intimidating as Alina had feared. The ballroom of the Grand Morrison Hotel was decorated like something out of a fairy tale. With 20-foot Christmas trees draped in gold and silver, crystal chandeliers that sparkled like ice, and a live orchestra playing classical arrangements of holiday songs. Everyone wore designer gowns and tuxedos, dripping in jewelry that probably cost more than Alina. Made in a year. Alina smoothed down the emerald green gown Derek had sent to her apartment. He'd included a note saying it was on loan from a designer friend, and that she could absolutely say no. But he thought the color would bring out her eyes. He'd been right. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves before flowing to the floor in elegant waves. Rachel had helped with her hair and makeup, creating soft curls and a classic red lip. Still, Alina felt like an imposter as Derek led her through the crowd, his hand warm and steady on her lower back. You're doing great, he murmured in her ear. I haven't said anything yet, Alina whispered back. Exactly. Very mysterious and intriguing. Despite her nerves, Alina smiled. Derek had a way of making her feel like everything would be okay. Derek, darling. An elegant older woman approached them, her silver hair styled perfectly. I've been looking for you everywhere, Mother Derek said, and Alina felt him tense slightly. I'd like you to meet Alina Carter. Alina, this is my mother, Patricia Morrison. Patricia's sharp blue eyes assessed Alina from head to toe. Charmed. You're the bookstore manager Derek has been spending so much time with. Yes, ma'am, Alina said, lifting her chin. It's wonderful to meet you. Was all Patricia said before turning back to her son. Your father wants to speak with you about the Tokyo expansion. Don't disappear. As Patricia walked away, Alina let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Well, that went well. She warm up to you, Derek said. Oh, he didn't sound entirely convinced. The evening continued in a blur of introductions. Derek's father, Richard Morrison, was polite but distant. His younger sister, Caroline, was sweet and genuinely interested in Alina's work at the bookstore. But everywhere Alina looked, she saw curious glances and whispered conversations. She knew what they were thinking. What is Derek Morrison doing with her? The breaking point came when Alina excused herself to use the restroom. She was washing her hands when Vanessa walked in, looking stunning in a red gown that probably cost more than Alina's car. Alina, isn't it? Vanessa said, reapplying her lipstick in the mirror. Having fun playing Cinderella? I'm having a lovely evening, thank you, Alina said evenly. Enjoy it while it lasts, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Derek has a pattern, you know. He gets bored with his little projects. Last year, it was a yoga instructor. Before that, a graduate student. He likes to play savior, makes him feel good about himself. But he always comes back to his own kind eventually. The words hit Alina like physical blows. Every insecurity she'd been trying to suppress came roaring back. Why are you telling me this? Alina managed. Because I'm trying to save you from humiliation, Vanessa said, turning to face her fully. Derek and I are inevitable. Our families have been friends for generations. We understand each other's world. Whatever he's told you, whatever promises he's made, they won't last. Men like Derek don't end up with girls like you. They marry women like me. Vanessa left, leaving Alina staring at her own reflection in the mirror. The beautiful dress suddenly felt like a costume. She didn't belong here, and maybe she never would. Alina found Derek talking with a group of businessmen. She touched his arm gently. I need to leave. Derek immediately turned his full attention to her, noticing the distress in her eyes. What happened? I just need to go. Please. Without hesitation, Derek excused himself and led Alina out of the ballroom. They didn't stop until they reached a private terrace overlooking the city. The cold December air was a shock after the warmth of the party. Talk to me, Derek said gently. Vanessa told me about your pattern, Alina said, hugging herself against the cold. The yoga instructor, the graduate student. All the women you save before getting bored and moving on? Derek's jaw tightened. That's not true, isn't it? You're a billionaire, Derek. You could have anyone. Why would you really want to be with someone like me long term? Because you're you, Derek said, his voice rising with frustration. Why can't you see that? Because I'm terrified. Alina shouted back, tears streaming down her face. I'm terrified that I'm going to fall completely in love with you. And then one day you're going to wake up and realize that Vanessa was right. That I don't fit in your world, that I never will, and that you made a mistake. The only mistake would be letting you walk away because you're too scared to take a chance on us, Derek said, his own eyes bright with emotion. Maybe being scared is smart, Alina said quietly. Maybe I should walk away before I get hurt worse. Is that really what you want? Alina looked at him, at this man who had shown her nothing but kindness and honesty, who had opened up his world to her despite knowing it might overwhelm her. She thought about the journal he'd given her, about all the blank pages waiting for their story. No, she whispered, but I don't know if wanting something is enough. Then let me prove it to you, Derek said, taking her hands. Give me until New Year's. If by then you still don't believe we can make this work, I'll let you go. But please, Alina, give us a real chance. Alina searched his face, looking for any sign of doubt. All she saw was determination and something that looked a lot like love. 1 week, she agreed. What Alina didn't know was that Derek had already made his decision. That night, after taking her home, he sat down at his computer and began writing an email that would change everything. The week between Christmas and New Year's was different. Derek took Alina to places that mattered to him. Not fancy restaurants or exclusive clubs, but real places. His favorite coffee shop where he'd spent hours as a college student, the park where his sister Caroline had taught him to ride a bike, the library where he'd fallen in love with architecture books as a child. In turn, Alina showed him her world. The tiny bookshop that was her sanctuary, introducing him to her favorite regulars. The soup kitchen, where she volunteered every Saturday, her cramped but cozy apartment, filled with books and handmade decorations. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Derek told her about the pressure of living up to his family's expectations, about how lonely it was at the top. Alina shared her fears about never being good enough, about her parents' messy divorce and how it had made her scared to trust. With each passing day, the walls between them crumbled a little more. On New Year's Eve, Derek picked Alina up at 7 o'clock. Dress warm, was all he would tell her. He drove them out of the city to a small clearing in the woods. There, he'd set up a private area with outdoor heaters, blankets, and a telescope. What is all this? Alina breathed. You mentioned once that you loved stargazing as a kid, Derek said, helping her out of the car. I thought we could watch the stars together and wait for midnight. Alina felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever done something so thoughtful for her. They spent hours lying on blankets under the stars, pointing out constellations and making up stories about them. As midnight approached, Derek sat up and took Alina's hands. Before the new year starts, I need to tell you something, he said. I've made some decisions this week. Alina's heart started to pound. What kind of decisions? I've stepped back from day-to-day operations of Morrison Hotels. My father wasn't happy, but I hired an excellent CEO to take over most of my responsibilities. I'm keeping my position on the board, but I'm going to be working remotely most of the time, focusing on the projects I actually care about.
Oh, Derek.
You can't do that for me, Alina protested. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for us, for myself. I've been so consumed by work and expectations that I forgot what it felt like to actually live. You reminded me, Alina. You showed me that there's more to life than board meetings and quarterly reports. What will you do? Alina asked softly. I want to start a foundation, something focused on literacy and supporting independent bookstores. I want to build things that matter, not just accumulate wealth. And I want to do it with you if you'll have me." Elena's voice broke. "I love you, Elena Carter," Derek said, his blue eyes shining with emotion in the moonlight. "Not because you need saving or because you're a project. I love you because you're brave and kind and you see the best in people. I love you because you make me want to be better. I love you because when I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally home." The countdown to midnight started in the distance, people in the city celebrating the new year. But Elena only had eyes for the man in front of her. "I love you too," she whispered. "I'm still scared, but I love you. And I want to try. I want to believe we can make this work." "We can," Derek promised. "We will." As the fireworks exploded in the distant sky, marking the start of a new year, Derek kissed Elena. It was a kiss full of promise and hope, of new beginnings and second chances. When they finally pulled apart, Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena's breath caught. "I'm not proposing," Derek said quickly, seeing her panic. "Not yet. But I want you to have this." Inside the box was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny book with chapter 1 engraved on it. "For our first chapter," Derek explained, fastening it around her wrist. "There will be many more to come." Elena threw her arms around him, holding tight as happy tears streamed down her face. "Happy New Year, Derek." "Happy New Year, Elena. The first of many we'll spend together." 3 months later, Elena stood in her brand new bookshop, the one Derek had helped her lease and renovate. It was bigger than Hartley Books, with floor-toozling windows and cozy reading nooks. The grand opening had been a huge success. With the whole community turning out to support her, Derek wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy?" "Incredibly," Elena sighed contentedly. "Good, because I have something else for you." He turned her around and pulled out another velvet box. But this one was different. Smaller. Elena's heart started to race. "I said I wasn't proposing that night on New Year's," Derek said, dropping to one knee. "But I never said I wouldn't propose ever." "Elena Carter, you changed my life with one mistaken text message. You taught me what really matters, what love is supposed to feel like. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life writing our story with you?" Through happy tears, Elena nodded. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Derek slipped the ring onto her finger, a beautiful emerald surrounded by diamonds, and kissed her as the bookshop customers who had stuck around erupted in applause as Elena looked at the ring on her finger and the man she loved. She thought about that Christmas night when she'd sent a message to the wrong number. It had seemed like a disaster at the time, but it had led her here to this perfect moment, to a love she never could have imagined. Sometimes the best things in life come from the mistakes we make, from the wrong turns that lead us exactly where we're meant to be. And as Derek pulled her close, promising her forever with his eyes, Elena knew that their story was just beginning. The message had been wrong, but the love was absolutely right. Thank you for taking Thed time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories. Olivia Carter checked her reflection one last time in the lobby mirror of Sterling Tower, smoothing down her navy blazer. At 26, she had spent 3 years building a modest reputation as a freelance fashion consultant for small businesses. But today could change everything. The email had been vague, mentioning only that Sterling Enterprises was looking for someone with a keen eye for professional styling. The building itself was intimidating, all glass and steel rising 40 stories into the Chicago skyline. Olivia's heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached the reception desk. Her portfolio tucked under one arm. "Olivia Carter for the 10 o'clock appointment," she said to the receptionist, a polished woman with silver hair. 38th floor. "Someone will meet you at the elevator." The woman's smile was professional but warm. As the elevator climbed, Olivia's stomach fluttered with nervous energy. She had researched Sterling Enterprises thoroughly. Julian Hartwell had taken over his father's struggling reel estate company at 28 and transformed it into a billion-dollar empire spanning luxury hotels, commercial properties, and fashion retail. He was known for two things: his brilliant business mind and his reputation for being impossibly demanding. The elevator doors opened to reveal a sleek reception area decorated in shades of charcoal and cream. A young man in an impeccable suit immediately approached her. "Miss Carter." "I'm Owen, Mr. Hartwell's executive assistant. Please follow me." Owen led her through a corridor lined with abstract art and into a spacious corner office with floor-to ceiling windows, overlooking Lake Michigan. The view was breathtaking, but Olivia's attention was immediately captured by the man standing at the window. Julian Hartwell was taller than she expected, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair styled perfectly away from his face. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but something about it seemed slightly off. When he turned to face her, Olivia was struck by his eyes, a striking shade of green that seemed to assess everything in an instant. "Miss Carter." His voice was deep and measured. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Hartwell. It's an honor to meet you." Olivia extended her hand, which he shook firmly. "Please, sit." He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "I assume you're wondering why you're here?" "The email mentioned a styling position," Olivia said carefully, settling into the chair. "Not exactly." Julian leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "I need someone who can be completely honest with me about something most people won't address." "My appearance?" Olivia blinked in surprise. Julian Hartwell was objectively handsome and always appeared immaculate in press photos.
I don't understand.
"You always look very professional." "Professional, yes. But I'm expanding into fashion retail, competing directly with brands that have spent decades building their image. I need to embody that world, not just fund it." He gestured to himself. "I need someone who can transform me from a real estate developer into a fashion industry leader." Before Olivia could respond, Julian moved to adjust his tie, and she noticed what had been bothering her. The Windsor knot was slightly asymmetrical, pulling the collar unevenly. "May I?" Olivia stood without thinking, her professional instincts overriding her nerves. Julian looked surprised but nodded. Olivia approached him, very aware of how close she needed to stand. She could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, with notes of cedar and bergamot. Her fingers worked quickly, loosening the tie. "The problem isn't the tie itself," she explained, focusing on her work rather than the intensity of his gaze. "It's how the collar is sitting. You need a different fold here." She adjusted the collar points, then began reknotting the tie with practiced efficiency. "Is this okay?" she asked, stepping back slightly to check her work. Julian examined himself in the reflection of the window, then looked back at her. "Not yet. It needs to be tighter." Olivia moved closer again, pulling the knot snug against his collar. Her fingers brushed against his neck for just a moment, and she felt him tense slightly. "Better?" she asked, her voice coming out softer than intended. "Perfect," Julian said. But he was looking at her, not his reflection. The moment stretched between them. Charged with something Olivia couldn't quite name. Then Julian cleared his throat and stepped back, breaking the spell. "You see? That's exactly what I need. Someone who notices the details and isn't afraid to fix them." He returned to his desk. "Everyone around me is too intimidated to tell me when something is wrong. With respect, Mr. Hartwell, that's probably because you have a reputation for being difficult to work with." Owen, who had been standing quietly by the door, made a small, choking sound. Julian's eyebrows rose, but there was amusement in his eyes. "You researched me, of course? It would be unprofessional not to. And you came anyway, knowing my reputation." "I don't scare easily," Olivia said, meeting his gaze steadily. "And from what I can see, you're not difficult. You just have high standards. There's a difference." Julian studied her for a long moment. "I'm prepared to offer you a position as my personal image consultant. You would work directly with me to refine every aspect of my professional appearance. Wardrobe, grooming, body language, everything. The salary would be $200,000 a year, plus expenses and travel." Olivia felt her heart skip. That was more than 4 times what she made now. That's very generous, but what about the styling assistant position? There is no styling assistant position. I had Owen research fashion consultants in Chicago. Your name came up repeatedly. Small businesses you've worked with saw significant improvements in their professional image. I don't need an assistant. I need the best. I'm flattered, but I have to ask why you're not using one of the major fashion consulting firms. Because they would assign me someone who treats me like a portfolio piece. You would treat me like a client who needs real help. Julian leaned forward. I saw how you fixed my tie just now. You didn't ask permission first. You saw a problem and solved it. That's what I need. Olivia's mind raced. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. But something about working so closely with Julian Hartwell both excited and terrified her. Can I think about it? You can have until tomorrow morning. Julian pulled a card from his desk drawer and handed it to her. My personal number. Call me with your decision. As Owen escorted her back to the elevator, he spoke quietly. For what it's worth, I've never seen him ask anyone if they needed time to think. He usually expects immediate answers. Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Owen smiled. With Mr. Hartwell, it's impossible to tell. But he seemed different with you. Less guarded, maybe. In the elevator, Olivia studied Julian's card, running her thumb over the embossed lettering. She thought about his eyes, the way he had looked at her when she adjusted his tie. The undeniable pull she had felt standing so close to him. She knew she should be cautious. Julian Hartwell was not just a potential employer, he was a force of nature. Working with him would be intense, demanding, possibly dangerous to her carefully constructed professional boundaries. But as the elevator descended, Olivia realized she had already made her decision. Some opportunities were too significant to let fear stand in the way. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to the number on the card. I accept. When do I start? The response came before she even reached the lobby. Monday. 7 a.m. Don't be late. Olivia smiled despite herself. She had a feeling her life was about to change in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. And it all started with a tie that needed adjusting. Olivia's first official day at Sterling Enterprises began earlier than she anticipated. At 6:30 in the morning, her phone buzzed with a message from Julian. Change of plans. Meet me at Randolph Street Coffee in 15 minutes. Business casual. She arrived at the upscale cafe to find Julian already seated at a corner table, looking remarkably relaxed in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater. It was the first time she had seen him without a suit, and the casual look made him seem younger, more approachable. Good morning, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I ordered you a cappuccino. Owen mentioned you drink them, yet Owen researched my coffee preferences. Olivia sat down, amused. I research everything. Julian slid a thick binder across the table. This is my schedule for the next 3 months. Fashion industry events, investor meetings, board presentations, and the launch party for our new luxury retail division. Each one requires a different approach. Olivia flipped through the pages, impressed by the detail. This is incredibly organized. That's Owen's doing. My job is to execute. Your job is to make sure I look like I belong in every one of those rooms. A paused. Starting with today. We're going shopping. Shopping? My entire wardrobe needs to be evaluated and updated. I trust you to tell me what stays and what goes. The next 4 hours were a whirlwind tour of Chicago's most exclusive boutiques. Olivia discovered that Julian was surprisingly open to feedback, trying on everything she suggested without complaint. He had good instincts but lacked the refined eye for proportion and color. That elevated an outfit from merely expensive to truly exceptional. Try this, Olivia said, handing him a navy blazer with subtle texture. It's less formal than what you usually wear, but more sophisticated than standard business casual. Julian emerged from the dressing room, and Olivia felt her breath catch. The blazer fit him perfectly, emphasizing his broad shoulders and athletic build. Combined with the dark jeans and a crisp white shirt, he looked like he had stepped out of a fashion magazine. Well, he asked, studying himself in the mirror. Perfect, Olivia said, then caught herself. I mean, It fits your needs for the industry events. Polished, but approachable. Julian turned to look at her directly, one eyebrow raised. You sure that's all you meant? Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. Professionally speaking, yes. Something flickered in Julian's eyes, but he simply nodded and returned to the dressing room. As he tried on more outfits, Olivia found herself increasingly aware of the intimacy of the situation. She was essentially reshaping his public image. One piece of clothing at a time, and the trust required for that felt significant. Over the following weeks, they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Olivia arrived at his penthouse apartment each morning at 7 to help him prepare for the day. She learned his preferences, his habits, the way he unconsciously tugged at his collar when stressed. Julian, in turn, began asking her opinion on matters beyond fashion. Seeking her perspective on presentations and business strategies. You have good instincts, he told her one morning, as she adjusted his pocket square before an important meeting. Not just about clothes, about people. I notice details, Olivia replied. It's part of the job. Is that all it is? Julian asked quietly. Just a job? Before Olivia could respond, Owen knocked on the office door. Mr. Hartwell, Miss Westbrook is here to see you. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Julian's expression hardened into something cold and distant. Tell her I'm busy. She's quite insistent. She says it's personal. Julian sighed heavily. Fine, give me 5 minutes. After Owen left, Julian turned to Olivia. Caroline Westbrook is my ex-fiancée. We ended things 8 months ago. She's been trying to reconcile ever since. Do you want to reconcile? Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice neutral.
No.
The answer was immediate and firm. But her father is a major investor in the retail expansion. I have to maintain civility. When Caroline entered the office minutes later, Olivia understood immediately why she made Julian uncomfortable. She was stunning, with platinum blonde hair and the kind of elegance that came from generations of wealth. Her eyes swept over Olivia with thinly veiled disdain. Julian, darlin', Caroline purred, kissing both his cheeks. You look wonderful. New stylist? Image consultant, Julian corrected. Carolyn, this is Olivia Carter. How nice. Carolyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. Julian, I came to remind you about the Children's Hospital Charity Gala this Saturday. We're expected to attend together. I don't recall agreeing to that. Daddy's company is the primary sponsor. It would look terrible if we didn't present a united front. Caroline placed a manicured hand on Julian's arm. Besides, we always went together. It's tradition. Olivia watched Julian's jaw tighten. Carolyn, we've discussed this. I know. But can't we at least be friends? For appearances. Carolyn glanced at Olivia. Unless your consultant has objections? Miss Carter's opinion on my personal life is not relevant, Julian said firmly. The words stung more than they should have. Olivia kept her expression carefully neutral. I should go prepare your notes for the afternoon meeting. She left before Julian could respond, walking quickly to her small office down the hall. She had no right to feel hurt. Julian was her employer. Whatever she felt when she straightened his ties or stood too close, while adjusting his collar, was completely unprofessional. That evening, as she was packing up to leave, Julian appeared at her door. About earlier, he began. You don't need to explain. Caroline is right. I'm just your consultant. Is that really all you want to be? Olivia looked up sharply. Julian stood in the doorway, his tie loosened and his expression more vulnerable than she had ever seen it. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you feel what I feel every morning when you fix my tie. If you notice the way I find excuses to be near you. If you think about me the way I think about you. Her heart hammered in her chest. Julian, this is complicated. I work for you, then quit. What? Quit, right now. Then we won't have that complication anymore. Can't just quit. This job is everything I've worked toward. Julian crossed the room to stand in front of her desk. Then tell me you don't feel anything, and I'll never bring it up again. We'll be strictly professional. Olivia stood, meeting his gaze. I can't tell you that. Why not? Because it would be a lie. Julian moved around the desk, and suddenly they were standing inches apart, the air between them electric with tension. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Come with me to the gala on Saturday," he said softly. "As my date, not my consultant. What about Caroline?" "Let me worry about Carolyn. I'm asking you." Olivia knew she should say no. This was exactly the kind of complication she had built her career avoiding. But standing this close to Julian, feeling the warmth of his hand against her skin, she found herself nodding. "Okay, yes." Julian smiled, genuinely smiled. And Olivia realized she would do almost anything to see that expression more often.
Good now.
"About Saturday, you'll need something stunning to wear. I know a designer, Julian. I can find my own dress." "No, you can. But let me do this, please." The vulnerability in his request melted her remaining resistance. "Okay." He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Olivia found herself rising on her toes to meet him halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but when she responded, Julian pulled her closer, deepening it until Olivia forgot where they were entirely. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you fixed my tie in my office." "Me too," Olivia admitted. "This changes things, I know. Are you scared?" Olivia considered the question honestly. "Terrified, but I'm not running." "Good," Julian said, kissing her once more. "Because I have no intention of letting you go." As Olivia drove home that night, she knew her life had shifted irrevocably. She was falling for Julian Hartwell, and Saturday's gala would make their relationship public. There would be consequences, judgments, complications she couldn't even anticipate yet. But for the first time in her carefully planned career, Olivia decided some things were worth the risk. Some connections were worth fighting for. And Julian Hartwell, with his impossible standards and unexpected vulnerability, might just be worth everything. The dress Julian had arranged for her to wear to the gala was a masterpiece of midnight blue, silk that seemed to shift between navy and black depending on the light. When Olivia saw herself in the mirror Saturday evening, she barely recognized the confident, elegant woman staring back. Julian arrived to pick her up in a private car, and the look on his face when she opened the door made every moment of preparation worthwhile. "You look breathtaking," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Olivia replied, taking in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. Without thinking, she reached up to adjust his bow tie, which was slightly crooked. Julian caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "What would I do without you?" "Probably walk around with crooked ties for the rest of your life." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine, so different from the controlled businessman she had first met. Probably. The Children's Hospital Charity Gala was held at the Four Seasons, and the ballroom glittered with Chicago's social elite. Olivia felt Julian's hand at the small of her back as they entered, a protective gesture that both thrilled and steadied her. Caroline found them within minutes, her expression icy despite her perfect smile. "I see you brought your consultant after all." Her tone made the word sound like an insult. "Olivia is here as my date," Julian said firmly. "I thought I made that clear when I called your father earlier this week." "Oh, Daddy mentioned something about that. We assumed you were just being difficult." Caroline's eyes swept over Olivia's dress. "Though I must say, she cleans up nicely." "Where did you find that dress?" "Rent the Runway." "Actually, it's an original Valentino," Olivia said calmly. "Julian has excellent taste." Aline's smile tightened. "How nice that he's dressing you now." "Like a doll?" "That's enough, Carolyn." Julian's voice was cold. "If you can't be civil, stay away from us." "You're making a mistake," Caroline hissed, dropping her false sweetness. "You think you can just walk away from our family's arrangement? My father has invested millions in your retail expansion. One word from him, and your investors will scatter. Then I'll find new investors. You'll be ruined. I'd rather be ruined than spend another moment pretending we have a future together." Caroline's face flushed with anger and humiliation. "You'll regret this, Julian. Both of you." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Olivia felt Julian's hand tighten on her waist. "I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Don't be. I knew what I was getting into." Olivia turned to face him fully. "But Julian, is she right?" Will her father really pull his investment? Probably. But I meant what I said. I'll find another way. He cupped her face gently. Some things are more important than business deals. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, dancing, and stolen moments when Julian would lean close to whisper something that made her laugh. Olivia had never felt more alive, more seen, than she did in his arms as they moved across the dance floor. But as midnight approached, Owen appeared at Julian's elbow, his expression troubled. "Sir, we have a problem. Thomas Westbrook just announced to several board members that he's withdrawing his investment. He's claiming you breached your verbal agreement regarding his daughter." Julian's jaw tightened. "When? Effective immediately. And he's suggesting to other investors that Sterling Enterprises is unstable leadership." Olivia felt her stomach drop. This was her fault. If she hadn't come tonight, if she hadn't gotten involved with Julian, none of this would be happening. "Julian, maybe we should know." He cut her off gently, but firmly. "Don't even finish that sentence. This isn't your fault, and I'm not backing down. But your company will survive. It always has." Julian took her hand. "Come with me. I need to show you something." He led her out of the ballroom and up to the hotel's rooftop garden, which was closed for the evening but accessible with Julian's connections. The Chicago skyline sparkled around them, and the noise of the gala faded to a distant murmur. "Do you know why I really hired you?" Julian asked, standing at the railing overlooking the city. "Because I fixed your tie?" He smiled slightly. "That was part of it. But the real reason was that, when you looked at me, you saw a person, not a portfolio. Not a business opportunity or a social connection. Just someone who needed help with his tie." Olivia moved to stand beside him. "That's because that's all you were in that moment. A man with a crooked tie." "Exactly." Julian turned to face her fully. "Caroline and her father, they never saw me that way. I was always Julian Hartwell, CEO, an asset to be managed. But you see Julian? Just Julian. And that's worth more than any investment." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you, Olivia Carter. And I don't care if it costs me every investor I have. You're worth it." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. "Julian, I'm falling in love with you too. But I don't want to be the reason your dreams fall apart." "You're not. You're the reason I remember why I had those dreams in the first place." He pulled her close. "I built Sterling Enterprises because I wanted to create something meaningful, not just profitable. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. You reminded me. So what do we do now?" "Now." Julian smiled, that genuine smile she loved. "Now we go back downstairs, and I make an announcement that's going to shock everyone in that ballroom." 20 minutes later, Olivia stood at Julian's side as he took the microphone during the charity auction. Her heart pounded as all eyes turned toward them. "Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the interruption, but I have an important announcement." Julian's voice was steady and confident. "As many of you know, Thomas Westbrook has decided to withdraw his investment from Sterling Enterprises. He believes I've made poor decisions regarding my personal life." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Olivia saw Carolyn standing near the bar, her expression triumphant. "What Thomas and others may not understand is that the best decision I've made in years is standing right here beside me." Julian looked at Olivia, and the love in his eyes made her breath catch. "Olivia Carter reminds me every day that success isn't measured only in profit margins. It's measured in integrity, authenticity, and having the courage to choose what truly matters." He turned back to the crowd. "So yes, I'm choosing her. And if that costs me investors who only valued me as a business asset rather than a person, then those aren't investors I want anyway. Sterling Enterprises will thrive because we're building something real, something meaningful, and we're doing it with people who share those values." The ballroom was silent for a long moment. Then, from the back of the room, someone began to applaud. Then another. Within seconds, most of the room was clapping. And Olivia saw several people approaching with business cards. Clearly interested in investment opportunities, Carolyn had disappeared, and Thomas Westbrook stood red-faced near the exit. Owen appeared at their side, grinning widely. "Sir, I have 5 potential investors who want to meet with you Monday morning." They said they've been looking for someone with integrity in this industry. Julian squeezed Olivia's hand. See? Sometimes standing up for what matters actually works out. 3 months later, Olivia stood in Julian's penthouse apartment, adjusting his tie before the official launch of Sterling Luxury Retail. The new division had exceeded all projections, thanks in part to a group of investors who valued Julian's authentic approach to business. "Is this okay?" she asked, stepping back to admire her work. Julian pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. "Not yet. Tighten it a little more," Olivia laughed, reaching up to adjust the knot. "You say that every time now, 'cause I love having you this close." He kissed her softly. "Besides, you're much better at this than I am. You're getting better. Last week you almost managed a proper Windsor knot. It almost doesn't count." Olivia's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it and smiled. "Owen says the car is ready. We should go. One more thing." Julian pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Olivia's heart stopped. "Julian, I know it's fast. I know people will say we're crazy. But I also know that from the moment you walked into my office and weren't afraid to tell me my tie was crooked, my life changed." He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring with a vintage setting. "I don't want to spend another day without knowing you're mine. Olivia Carter, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Julian slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her with a passion that made her dizzy. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Olivia rested her head against his chest. "Your tie is crooked again," she murmured. "Good," Julian said, smiling against her hair. "That means you'll have to fix it. For the rest of our lives, that's the plan." As they rode to the launch event, Olivia reflected on how far they had both come. She had started as a consultant hired to fix a crooked tie and ended up finding a partner who valued her for who she was. It's not just what she could do for his image. Julian had learned that true success meant building a life with someone who saw past the CEO to the man underneath. The launch was a spectacular success. Sterling Luxury Retail's first flagship store was packed with fashion industry leaders, celebrities, and the investors who had believed in Julian's vision. As Olivia watched him give his speech, confident and authentic, she felt a surge of pride. "He's different now," Owen said, appearing at her elbow. "Happier. More himself." "That's your doing." "He was always himself," Olivia replied. "He just needed someone to remind him it was okay to show it." After the event, as they returned to Julian's penthouse, he pulled her onto the balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Chicago stretched out before them, full of possibility. "Have I told you today that I love you?" Julian asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "At least 5 times. But I never get tired of hearing it. Good, because I plan to say it every day for the rest of our lives." He kissed the top of her head. "Thank you, Olivia." "For what?" "For seeing me. For not being afraid to fix my tie even when I was being impossible. For choosing me even when it was complicated." Olivia turned in his arms to face him. "Thank you for letting me in. For trusting me with more than just your wardrobe. For loving all of me, not just the professional version." Always, Julian promised as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the city sparkling below them. Olivia realized that sometimes the best things in life start with the smallest moments. A crooked tie. An honest critique. A willingness to take a risk on something real. She had gone to Sterling Enterprises looking for a job and found a partner. Love. A future she never could have imagined. And it all began because she wasn't afraid to step close and adjust what needed fixing. "Your tie is perfect now," she whispered. Julian smiled, that smile reserved just for her. So is everything else. And as he kissed her beneath the stars, with their entire future stretching out before them, Olivia knew he was right. They had found their perfect fit, and nothing would ever pull them apart. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you've enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.